10:01, we will begin. Slight change of the agenda. We will begin with utilities this morning.
Hey, Mayor.
Yes.
Just to recap from yesterday for some of the folks that were not here yesterday possibly, we went through the general fund, larger departments mainly. We skimmed through smaller divisions. Just want to touch back with the commission. Are you good on general fund departments? Do you need any more coverage on any of the smaller departments? Or we just want to make sure we're ready to move forward to a separate fund? The rest of the commission,
I had some questions regarding May Boland and lobbyists.
All right, that's the city hall, so why don't we wrap that stuff up?
And so I just wanted a little bit more, that we do a little bit more marketing for our May Boland project. I saw that it was $100,000 that we put into this. Whose phone is that?
You know, it's the overhead music. I've got to get Craig. There we go.
All right.
We're going to need Wally. Wally, I need you to talk about May Boland.
And so just just basically get a little bit more information so that I know it is a transport bus type service that we provide to residents, and we have, people are a little upset that the shopper hopper went. So I just want to get more information regarding what May Boland is, how can our residents get more information about it and utilize that service.
Very good. So Wally Majors, yep.
Wally Majors, Recreation and Parks Director. The Voland Center is the organization that provides transportation primarily to our senior center, but they also provide transportation to other points of interest in the city, like shopping centers or, again, other areas that are popular with the seniors. The bulk of their service is basically free because any senior that's participating in our food program at the senior center is basically allowed to contact the Voland Center the day before, and they will provided a free ride to the senior center and back to their house as part of that program. Any other type of route, which would be anything other than the senior center, costs $3 each way. So it's still not that expensive compared to alternative transportation, but it is something that we've been doing now for the past 4 or 5 years. Previously, we did have a transportation division. It was a lot more expensive to operate because then we were dealing with full-time bus drivers and the maintenance of the rolling stock, which we don't have to deal with right now. So it's a program that's been around for several years. I give very positive feedback. As a vendor, the Voland Center has been very reliable. They're very responsive to our needs. And I can honestly say in the 5 or 6 years that we've been involved with this agreement with them, it's been nothing but positive.
Okay. And so I just wanted to make sure that we have that information to everybody who is elderly that just use the senior center.
Yeah, and certainly we can always improve our marketing efforts and as it relates to that.
And then as the lobbyist, I think it went up $10,000 to $60,000.
No, that's the same. Yeah, same as last year.
Okay, I'd like to see the invoice from the Ballard Group.
Okay, we get a monthly.
So that we can figure out what exactly the money's being spent on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor, excuse me, I'd like to go ahead and piggyback on the May Boland Center. I visit the senior center every day. They're open. I hear complaints, I'm just saying, when the bus arrive, I'm just saying, and they saying, well, they got to us late again today, so there is not, everything is not positive. There's a time schedule, and I'm just saying, so you all can check on that, because they do tell me that they got to us late today, and we'd be already eating lunch sometime, and then the bus will pull up. I'm just saying, so scheduling is a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing nothing else, moving on to utilities.
All right, Colin Groff, Assistant City Manager. I'm going to go through this. I'm going to try to go through it. Utilities is not always the most exciting thing, but it's a large part of the budget, so we wanted to spend a little bit of time going through what the utility budget is and talk a little bit about rates. We just finished last year finished a 5-year series of rate increases. We're not going to propose any major rate increases for the next 5, 10, or 15 years, but we do want to talk a little bit about rates to make sure we don't get into a point as a utility where it's not sustainable, where we don't have enough funds to actually operate a utility. It's one of those things in government that we operate to keep people alive. Clean water is important, taking away the sewers. So we want to spend a little bit of time talking about that and give an option that we'd like you to consider that we would then bring back in August. So real quick, The budget this year is $46,500,000. It's an increase of about $4 million. Most of those increases are in some direct overhead increases. That's the money we fund to the general fund to pay for employees that work in the general fund but work on utility issues. These would be a couple of the new positions that we have. We have a community standards officer position that's going to work on plumbing issues, code issues that are plumbing and tying to sewer that we have a lot of problems with. We have an IT professional that we've added to help us with all of the software needs and utilities. The general fund we call dividend or revenue. It's 7.5% of the utility revenue goes to the general fund as a transfer, so there's a $250,000 increase this year of that. The other thing we're doing this year is we're slowly moving to where our R&R, which is the money we spend every year to replace existing utilities that are already out there. We're trying to get to the point where we're not using any borrowed money, so we're raising that another $1.6 million out of revenue. And what that allows us to do is do all the R&R with current year revenue instead of having to borrow money. And then debt service, there's a little bit of an increase in debt service. That was for the new bond that we floated 3 or 4 months ago. That was the second phase of a long-term bond. That will actually go back down in about 5 years when another older bond is paid off. And then chemicals have gone up a little bit. Chemical costs have continued to go up, and we use a lot of chemicals in the water, so that's 237. So that's where most of the increase. Everything else is just minor increases throughout every department of things we're doing. This is just looking real quick at each individual. We have a bunch of divisions and utilities.
Colin, excuse me, I'm going to stop you.
Okay.
Okay, when we connected the east plant with the west plant, I know we ran into problems. How much was it over? Did we recoup any money? I'm just saying.
Yes, we did. We received liquidated damages from the contractor, and we actually came in under budget, believe it or not, even though we had problems with it because of the liquidated damages and other things we collected, which is the reason for those, is so we can collect our damages. So we actually came in under budget, so we didn't go over budget, but it was problematic. We lost about 4 months in that project, and it was due to the contractor's failure to do the project correctly.
But I'm saying we did not recoup any money, although we came in under budget?
We recouped about $110,000 in liquidated damages, yes.
Thank you for sharing that with us, because I didn't know.
Yes, we did. I'm sorry, I should have put that in a report. So.
Thank you.
So this is the general budget. Again, you can go through and see each individual division and where they're going up and down. The reason customer relations is down 21%, that's probably the biggest changes. That's because we went to outsource the bill printing and all that, and we got rid of a lot of old machines and things like that. So it's actually saving us quite a bit of money outsourcing those services. The proposed personnel change, again, we talked about this, 3 additional positions. 1 utility field technician in meter services. We're still adding customers, and as you add customers, you need more people to maintain those customers. We talked about the network administrator and the community standards officer that we're adding in the general fund but paying for through a transfer out of utilities. We also eliminated 2 positions with attrition. They were not layoffs, but through attrition, and that was because we said we were going to do that a year ago when we said we were going to outsource billing. We said through attrition, we're going to eliminate a few personnel because we don't need those jobs, those types of jobs anymore. And we've actually been able to refocus several customers directly to dealing with customers directly instead of being in the back office doing billing and all that. So that's helped also. Are we there yet? Are we perfect with customer service? No. We continue to try to make improvements every day, but I think we are improving every day. We're not perfect. And then we're doing a position upgrade. We have a vacant engineering technician position, and one of the things you'll see right now is utilities moving into what we call enterprise asset management, which is making sure every single asset the utility owns is documented, it's inspected annually, the conditions reported, and they're getting replaced right before they fail. Because the idea is we want to replace things before they fail, because when they fail, people are without service. So that's a huge job undertaking to keep track of millions of pieces of equipment, which is what utilities owns, assets that utility owns. So one of the things that I'm just spent a little bit of time with is how do you...
Stop. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Another comment.
Go ahead.
When we started changing the fire hydrants, everybody was excited about we're changing the fire hydrants. You know, are we still doing that? Because in District 2, I don't see any fire hydrants being changed. I'm just saying, you know, nobody's given us a report, not me anyway. I'm going to speak for myself. I don't know what's going on with the fire hydrants.
Yeah, absolutely, we are. Every new fire hydrant that goes in and every replacement fire hydrant is the new standard. And we do about 50 a year just replacement, because one of the things we don't want to do is a wholesale replacement, because a lot of the older fire hydrants, they're not failing yet. You know, we just keep them. But you will see them, and there are scattered all over the city because the replacements are based on failure rates.
Okay.
As we do new projects, though, they get all new fire hydrants. So,
as
you will start seeing more and more of them.
New projects and failure rates. This is when they're replaced.
Right.
Thank you. That's what I need to hear. Okay.
So I want to talk a little bit about, you know, a sustainable utility budget, because that's what's in what.
I apologize.
No, you're fine.
Can
Go
you
ahead.
finish your sentence? You said you will start seeing more of them.
You will start seeing more of them throughout the city. We replace 50 to 60 a year, so we have about, how many? We have about 4,000 hydrants, so you can see how long it will take us, but we do 50 or 60 a year based on failure rate. So you will start seeing them more and more as we replace. Every year that goes by, there'll be more out there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so one of the things, so the way we do utility budgets is we develop the operating costs based on past data and what we're doing right now, what we need to serve the customer, and then we use GIS, hydraulic modeling, the asset management, and the SCADA, and a variety of other tools to develop what we need for capital. Because we have to look out in utilities 20, 30, 40 years to determine what do we need to serve the public for that period of time. You know, until this year, the way we do that, it is an educated guess. We look out and we look at a 5-year cycle as what do we think it's going to grow, what do we think, and then we set rates based on that. So the last rate adjustments were based on just kind of an educated guess on what we thought was going to happen. That doesn't provide you the data to do a sustainable utility from a rate standpoint. So we've developed a new way of looking at rates, and basically it's a dynamic rate system that takes all of the data we have, and we have millions of points of data every day that comes into utilities that we look at. It comes from our SCADA, which is our supervisory and control data acquisition system, which is collecting data from all of our machines out in the field. Every single pump, everything, it's collecting data. We have GIS that has documents of where all the pipes are, what the conditions of them are. The asset management gives us conditions of all the equipment and when they're expected to fail. So we're taking all that information and now we're feeding it into a software package that develops. What it does, it tells us where we need to build projects, and so then the engineers develop those projects over a 20-year cycle, and it also then develops what rates do you need to cover those costs over the long term. And we call that utility management optimization. So that's what we call that. So that's kind of where we're doing this year with preparing our budget. We're using these tools, and it's a very powerful tool. It's something that probably one of the first utilities in the country that be able to pull all this data together into one place and look at it. Most utilities can't do that right now. So we're able to look at all of our data in one place, which helps us give us a better feel for what we should charge the customer so that it pays for the utilities that they're receiving.
Colin,
Yes.
that data, is it stored, you know, so it won't be burned up or something like that?
Absolutely. It's either stored locally on our servers with backup, or it's stored in the cloud, meaning it's stored in multiple places in the country. So the data is backed up, and backed up routinely, like continually. So one of the tools we use is GIS. We've done a major upgrade to our GIS, getting all of our maps up to date. We've upgraded to an enterprise platform, which allows us to put that data on everybody's phone. So our employees now have the data in the field where our utilities are. Again, last year they were going out in the field and they'd have to bring paper maps. Sometimes they weren't right. Now they have it right on. They can get it right on their handheld, and they can see where all of our pipes are. And in utilities, that's important. I know it doesn't sound exciting to some people, but you don't know where they are unless you have a map to show you, because it's all underground. So using that, it's really helping us become more efficient in solving problems, and when we do have an issue, getting to the issue and solving it faster.
Are there handhelds on their phone?
Yes.
Tell them that. I think
Oh, yeah, it's on their phone, so they can look at their maps on their phones or on pads. And Michael has examples of it, but if you want to see it. But you can see it, and what that looks like is it's a tool like I got to remember which button to push here. There we go. It's a tool like that. So these maps, and what you see here is these are just maps that we use, and these are all the utilities. That's green is sewer, blue is water. And if you look at these yellow spots, all those yellow spots are problems. There are areas where we have issues that we need to solve. So you look at just this section of town, you can see we have quite a few. Now, most of them are probably small, but what it allows us very quickly to look is where do we need to send crews to work, and how do we develop work tickets to get them to work on those problems. So this is available to the field.
The phones that they're holding now, the city provide those?
We do. We have a service that we provide, a phone that looks like that. And not every employee has them, but every crew has one, and then every employee that needs it. But we have about 70 or 80 deployed. They're a very inexpensive way. We also use them as our radio system. So we don't have the $5,000 and $6,000 radios. We have these $45 phones. So it's a much less expensive way to communicate and much more effective. So, yeah, and I don't know if you can see it. There's the GIS on the phone right there. So.
And unoccasionally, they go into a hole and don't come back out, so it's a much better
Yes.
replacement rate when necessary.
Exactly. So it helps us. Asset management, again, this is something new we're adding, and that's, it operates, again, you asked about the data. The data stays in a cloud, so we're not having to maintain a bunch of software. But what it allows us to do is save complete records of our equipment. So we know when it was touched, how long it took, what the cost was on that equipment, and when it needs to be replaced and what that condition is. And we run those reports monthly, and our engineers sit down and look at it, and they develop their plans on what they're going to be doing over the next 6 to 7 months of replacing equipment based on that information in asset management. It's saved back real time, and again, it goes back onto their phones, so they get the employees will get their work tickets on their phones, and they'll complete their work ticket on their phone, so we know how long they were at the site, how long they worked, what they did. So it's another way of getting that data back in, so we do a better job managing our money. And that, again, that's just one of the screens off of that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but that's just how it comes in, so the engineers can look at this and figure out what's being scheduled, PMs, and other thing that's going on. We're using hydraulic modeling. Hydraulic modeling is an engineering thing, but basically what that means is we have a pipe system in a computer, and allows us to run a model on that to tell us what it's going to do. So if we have 15 people turn on their water, what's the pressure going to be in the pipe, and where do we have problems? So we run those routinely, and what that does is that tells us where we have problems in our system. And we run them all the time, and there's a separate model for water, wastewater, force mains, reuse, and then we have models for stormwater also, and for gravity sewer. And we identify, so every time a new project comes in, we put it in the model and say, okay, what do we need to build? Do we need a bigger line? Do we need a bigger pump station? What we need bigger? So every time it comes in, now we can plan. Up until now, we didn't have these updated hydraulic models, and so we were basically come in, we say, well, we think that needs to be a 12-inch line, go ahead and put a 12-inch. Now we can model it, we know exactly what we need to do, and we look again 20 years in the future. We're not looking at just today.
I call them manholes, but these big trucks that go out and got that big thing on the front and goes down, what are they doing?
Those are vacuum trucks. They're actually vacuum out solids out of the manholes, because when sewer goes into a manhole or into a pipe, some of the solids drop out of the sewer. They don't always stay in, and we have to clean it out. A lot of grease gets trapped on the edge of pipes. So what they're doing is they're cleaning out those pipes and cleaning out those manholes, and it's just a big vacuum machine is really all it is. It's really no different than the vacuum in your house, except really much bigger.
Except it has a terrible odor. Go ahead.
And it does, because it's sucking out sewer, so they will stink sometimes.
Yeah.
We do our best, try not to, but if you're right up next to one, it will stink. We didn't create the smell. It's created by others. Anyways, hydraulic modeling, this is just an example of where we had run the model for our reclaimed water system, and what we found is we found some pressure issues. All these reds are pressure issues we have east of 95, and so we know we have to do a project. So we decided we're going to have to build a reservoir, a reclaimed water reservoir. And so when we put that reservoir in, we can see a lot of those red dots go away. We still have a few, but we're going to solve those with piping. But what this allows us to do is test our projects to make sure they're going to solve the problem before we build them. So that's something we do every day. We do hydraulic modeling to test our system. So next thing we use is, what do we do when we build these projects? We put them in what we call eBuilder. This is our project database. This is where every project we have is stored in, and it allows us to store all of our costs, all of our schedules, the plans, all the documentation. So there's one place to go for all the project information you need to know for every utility. Now, and eventually we're going to move this into general services too, into Public Works doing their projects in eBuilder also. We're doing utilities first, then we're going to move to Public Works. But it gives us the ability to track all those projects. So then what do we do with, and that's kind of what it looks like in, you get project, this is the cost for this particular project, and it gives you nice tables, and it's hard to see this in such small, I'm just giving you screenshots. But as you can tell, we are using all of these tools that we have to work on what the what capital improvement plan needs to be. And so we use these to develop the capital improvement plan and to meet the, what we call adequate service levels, meaning when you turn on your faucet, the water comes on, it comes out clean, clear, and high quality. When you flush your toilet, it goes away and you never see it again. And then when you have to irrigate, if you're on reclaim, you get water that's less expensive because we're reclaiming that sewer that went away and we're putting it back on your yard. The last thing we do is we want to make sure that when it rains, the stormwater goes away. Now, we have flooding problems in the city. We're fixing them. We have less now than we did 3 years ago. We still have some. We're still working on them. But so those are all the things we do, and we develop projects to solve all those problems. And then based on the acquired service level, we determine the operating budget. So the operating budget you see is based on what the service level we need to make sure we make those things happen that I just said happen. And so we use that model that we have to bring all that information together into one place where we can run rate scenarios. What do we need to do for customers to keep their rates as low as possible, but still make sure we're paying for the things we need to do? And so we're making sure that every modification and every project and every dime we spend is being spent in the right place to provide that service level. And we've never had that tool before. In fact, most utilities do not have it. So again, we're kind of on the cutting edge a little bit of providing that technology to our staff to make better decisions. So how does that, this is a techie chart. If you get bored, I'm sorry, but for engineers, we love this kind of stuff. So, but basically what happens is we select the projects and we look at what that funding need is, we look at the timing, and then we see what does that do to the rates. And if we don't like the rates, we come down and we can change the projects, and then we go back in and we go through this iterative process. Up until now, this usually is done once or twice every 5 years. Now we can do, I did over 50 in about 2 hours of these iterations to get right to the right number that I wanted to see that worked best for the customers. So what this allows us to do is look at this data very, very quickly and get very good information out of it that we couldn't do before because it's pulling all this into one place. So this is our capital plan that we've come up with for 2017, and this is right out of, what I did is instead of showing you these charts and all that, I'm pulling it right out of our software system, and this is all going to be online for the public to see and anybody else. So what this is this is our capital plan worksheet for 2018, which is this year right there, and I've highlighted. But you can see we've planned it all the way out 20 years, and actually it can go out as far as you want. And what you see is these first years this is where we're doing these neighborhood improvement projects, where these are big projects where we're upgrading utilities, and once they're done, you don't have to work on them for 50 years. So then we average back out to this $7 to $8 million a year expenditure, and what that is that's that annual replacement that we're going to have to do because we don't really have any big projects coming up, and if we do, they'll fit into that number. So
I have a question. You have on there reuse water for Galaxy. Are all the schools in Boynton, are they getting reused?
Not yet, but they will. Most of them will. We're getting ready to start a big project to expand reuse, and you'll be seeing that soon.
And reuse water at Galaxy is done at night?
When is...
Michael Lowe, Manager, Technical Services. Yes, basically the school has their own supply and also the ball field behind. Both of them are on reuse. Okay. And generally they do them in the evening. That's why we have the pressure issues.
Right, but we have something posted saying this is reused water at Galaxy.
Every area.
Okay.
Yeah, every area that gets reused has to be posted. And we've been adding some customers, and we're getting ready in the next year. We're going to be adding, probably tripling the size of our customer base for reuse. We have a lot of large customers that are ready for it. We just need to expand the pipe. So we have to build that tank first because our model shows that we can't serve them right now. So we got to build the tank. But this is our plan, and I'm going to show you the tabular form. But this is a good graphical way to look. And each one of these colors are a different area that we're working in. Neighborhood improvements, plants, and things like that. And then we can look down here. So what it does is it gives our staff one place to look with a map of where these projects are. The size of the circle is just the cost of the project and whether or not it's water, reuse, or something. So these are costs of the project and the type of project. So you can look right here. We got a big circle. That's that $10 million reuse project. It's in the center of town because really it's the citywide project. But these are very specific projects in very specific locations that we're going to be building next year. So that's just one way to look at our projects. We also do the tabular format. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but you can look. We've got some big projects for next year. One of the things is we're doing this Central Seacrest, what we call the Seacrest Corridor. That's the Phase 2 project. That's in District 3. That's about a $10 million project, and there's water, stormwater, and and other improvements within that project. So you'll see that project. That's one of our biggest projects next year. We have about $7.7 million there, and we have about $2 million someplace else in the budget. Yeah, right here, stormwater. There's the other part of it right there. This is the big reuse distribution project right there. It's $10 million total. Next year it'll be, I can't see that from this angle, but
$2 million. It's $2 million.
$2 million. I'm trying to make it big enough for y'all to see, and I can't see it. And then, so you go through here, and what this does, this is just a list of projects that we've developed based on all of that information we have in our system now that we can look at. So these are what we know are needed next year. We also do things called this, rehab pumping stations. That's R&R work. So you'll see there's R&R work in here too, which is replacement and rehabilitation of projects right here, like pump station replacement. We need to replace a couple of pump stations a year because they only last about 20 years. So every 20 years you got to replace them, and we have about 220. So that tells you how many we got to do a year. So and we have to fund that. So that's where we fund those. And then we have gravity. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. While you're on the topic, what about Pence Park? I know we had some issues with that. Did we get that resolved?
The odor issues at pump, yes. I think we have. We have not had a complaint in about 5 months. So we believe it's solved. We'll stay on top of it. We actually have a new odor control company that's now working with us. We redid that and got a better company that's working with us. So I think we have that solved. What I tell people all the time about sewer is we can solve 99% of the odor, but we can't solve the 1%. The 1% may happen, and if you happen to be standing there when it happens, you are going to smell it. Now, what we hope is nobody's standing there when it happens, that 1%, but it does happen. I wish I could promise 100%. There's not enough technology out there to get 100%.
Since we're on Pence Park, Commissioner Fitzpatrick made a statement saying that since you all took some of our park, that you all pay us for it. Huh?
No, we don't normally do that, but we did add a lot of improvements to the park, because we did add new sewer and water for the restrooms at the park, because their restrooms were failing and all that. So utilities did pay basically to the park, to the general fund, for use of that property through some other improvements we did when we did the pump station. So we also paved some roads and things like that with that pump station.
Are we using reclaim to water that park as well?
Not that park. We will be. We're not there yet, right? That park is not on reclaim yet. No, but there's a line nearby, so eventually we'll be. We're adding it as we can, and that one will be soon. Again, we'll have to do it off hours. You know, that park may be like 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. We have to time it when people aren't using it. Of course, when it comes on, people won't be using it anyways, because they'll be wet. But we don't really want people to get soaked by reuse if they can. But it's safe. It's not going to hurt you, most likely, but there's always the potential, the possibility. So we want to post the signs and make sure people aren't playing in it.
The bathrooms over at Pence Park, are they online?
The new sewer and water to them is, yes. We had a big problem over there with the plumbing kept backing up and all that, and it was the sewer lines going over, so we replaced all those as part of the project.
Yeah, because at Hester, I hate to go ahead and say it, but we are not on sewer.
Sarah Sims, you mean?
Sarah Sims.
Sarah Sims, I know. We're going to address those. Those are coming.
Yeah.
So these are the rest of the projects. Again, just looking at some projects. Trying to think if there's nothing major in here, big projects. These are all just smaller projects that we're working on. Probably a big one is this utility acquisition. The reason that's still in there is we're still talking to some utilities about merging with the city. And so as those come up, we want to make sure if there's funding needed, we have the funding.
Colin, the area on Seacrest that is right around southeast 31st, that whole region floods something awful whenever it rains. What are we doing about that?
Yeah, we do have a project for the south end. Is it next year or is it this year? I think it's in the following year because we just couldn't squeeze it into next year. I think it's in the following year, but we do have a project for that area for stormwater. That whole area down near past the hospital and
Yes,
at Gulf,
28th,
yes.
31st, that whole strip.
Absolutely.
floods.
The
Cars
whole
and
area
cars,
needs some
yeah.
swales, it needs some piping,
Yes.
and we do have a project delineated for that. If I had my 20-year plan, I could show you how that works.
Well,
But
hopefully it's not in 20 years.
no,
Okay.
it's either.
Just making
it's-
sure.
The planning is next year, but I think the project's actually in 1920, which is the next a year from October.
Not 1920, 2020.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. 2019 to 2020. Boy, that's a lot of 20s.
So So is there any way to speed that process up and potentially prioritize that as an item of
Yeah, I mean,
capital works?
if we do the planning this year and it becomes a simple project, yes. If it's still a complicated project where we got to add a lot of piping, the permitting alone takes a year.
Okay.
It depends on some projects we actually move projects all the time based on what we need to do, but if we have to permit a project and really build a big project, it takes about a year to get to the point where we can start construction.
Okay.
Unfortunately. I
Right.
wish it was faster. It's just not.
Understand, and my only concern is just the fact that that is the entrance to our city from the
Right.
south end, from Delray Beach, and so as people are driving into our city, this is, especially on a rainy day, this is the first thing that they encounter. So
Absolutely, that's a
we have to
problem.
fix that.
We have 3 major issues we're addressing next year. One is the Dimmick Road, Potter Road area, which floods every time it rains, so we're doing that big, large project. We're doing a project, you know what I need to do is, Northeast 20th is just starting. I'm going to go back up, I'm going to go up a page because I'm going to look at the stormwater, which is right here. So here's our stormwater projects, right? Okay, there we go. If I can find it right, here it is. So this is just, this number right here is just everyday work where we go out and we fix swales and all that. This is the Lakeside 20th Avenue. That's that area where we're going to be doing that project. 20th and 2nd, we're finishing up that project. 1st and 6th, that's another project we're doing. And then this inlet project, we've got some problems in it, flood. So we've addressed these. 33rd is on the list. That area is on the list, and it starts the following year for construction. So we will get to it now. If, let's say this comes in and we look at this project right here, and that really is only $500,000, we're going to pull projects up. And I do think that's actually the next one on the list that would get pulled up. I'm trying to remember if that is, there's one other one too. There's 1 or 2 that are like the next priorities to do. But we'll look at that one too, because it is a problem. We don't get as many complaints as we probably should, but it is a problem area.
You're getting it now.
Okay. Well, we're going to take it.
Okay.
Sounds good.
You'll send me some specifics on
Yeah, we can do that.
timeframe for that?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So what do we do with this? This is right. I just did some screenshots right out of our model. So what we did is if we don't adjust rates, this is what, if we don't do anything to rates the next year or 2 or 3 years, this is what it looks like. Basically, this is the increase in our O&M projections, and this increase right here is trying to fund our R&R replacement without borrowing money for that, because it's a bad idea to borrow money for things you're replacing. It's better to pay as you go, because you're borrowing money for maybe 25 years on something that only lasts 15. Doesn't make a lot of sense. So that's really what the jump is in expenditures, is to try to pay as we go. So this is what our cash flow would look like without any rate increases. And what does that do to each utility? If you look at each utility, if you look at water, we're okay. The red line is our revenue, and these columns are what our expenditures are, and we're looking out over 10 years. So we're looking 10 years and what it is. If in water, we're collecting enough money. The problem is in sewer, we're not. You can see the red lines below what our needed expenditures are, and that's with no growth and doing nothing right here. Stormwater, you can see we're way underfunded in stormwater right now, and reuse is really underfunded, although reuse is not as important because it's a small amount of money. So in reality, reuse is taking the place of water. So it's okay actually to subsidize a little bit of reuse with your potable water, because you want people on reuse rather than potable water for irrigation. So if you do a little bit of that, it helps people move them to reuse.
How do you help a resident go from potable
If it's
to-
available, we'll go to them and we'll try to say, listen, you're paying, especially if you're east of 95, you're paying, probably an average of $2 per 1,000 gallons for potable. You'll pay about 35 cents per 1,000 gallons for reuse. So
you're
we
saying
convince them on budgets.
It would be you that approaches the customer?
We do. Now, we don't do single family
That's what I'm
yet.
asking. Okay.
We're going to experiment a little bit in a couple places where we can. Normally, single family is hard to do for reuse because it's so hit and miss. Not everybody irrigates. If you have a neighborhood where everybody does, it makes some sense. When it's only 1 or 2 meters, it doesn't pay for the pipe you put in. So we go after the big, the condo. We just did High Point. To take them examples, they cut their costs by probably $200,000 a year jointly amongst all these things. $200,000 a year. That's a lot of money that they cut their costs going to reuse.
So have you looked into Big and Sterling Village and those other?
We are. The next expansion will pick up, the Sterling Villages come to us, they want to tie in, we'll pick up them on the next expansion. We're going to go across the Intercoastal and pick up a couple golf courses. And then there's 3 or 4 other customers along that same corridor that we'll be picking up.
Okay.
But, so what happens though is those people that may have access is By using reuse, it cuts down on our need to spend more money on potable water, drill more wells and all that, which would really make these rates go up. So we want to encourage it, but this is a problem and this is a problem because we're not paying for what we're doing. In other words, we're not covering our costs. So when you look at that overall, and this is just a slide of the overall utility, that's all of the utility funds put together overall, you can see this is our revenue source and this is our projected expenditures. We've got a deficit right here all the way out. So if we don't do something with the rates, we're going to have a deficit and we're going to be deficit spending, and that's not something we want to do. We also, these are our reserves. You also see we're starting to dip into our reserves that we want to keep, and we're not growing them again. So for us, this model allows us to look at that very, very quickly and run scenarios on what do we do to fix this problem. So what we're going to recommend is if you look over here, and I don't know if you can read that or not, but if you look over there, there is a table where we can, one of the things we do with money and utilities is the cost of money changes every year. It's called inflation, right? We all know what inflation does. Things go up in cost and all that. And so one of the things utilities make a mistake doing is we don't adjust our cost based on inflation. So we're going to recommend that we start moving to where we just adjust our rates annually based on inflationary rates published by the federal government. And so what this model allows us to do is put those numbers in there. So if you look at this, we've adjusted rates, and I think I have 2.2 for inflation, and that's next year's projected inflation rate is 2.2. And then we have labor inflation, so what that does is it puts that 2.2 across the, not across the board, but across everything that index affects, which is a lot of materials, transportation costs, all of the costs except for utilities and personnel and wages. And then there's a construction. So those three things are not generally included in that index. So that index affects everything else. The next index is the labor inflation. So what that says is what is our labor cost going to increase? And we're estimating next year a 1% overall. You guys have some things in the budget and all that we're proposing. It hasn't been approved yet, but if those are approved, then we think the 1% for across utility labor is a good number to use from an inflationary standpoint. And then the next one we can adjust is utilities. Utilities is our electric, basically the electric that we buy to run all these things, which we have a fairly large electric bill because we run a lot of pumps and things. So, and we are looking at that, and based on what we're looking at, that's going to be about.
Give me an example of a large electric bill for the utility.
We spend well over $2 million a year. I mean,
Wow.
It's a huge amount of money. I think between the wastewater plant alone's electric bill is $1.1 million a year, of which we pay 60% of that. So that's $700,000, $600,000 that we pay just at the wastewater plant. The water plants are probably around, yeah, he's looking it up right now. So the water plants alone are $950,000. Then the pump stations are.
Why do we pay 60%?
Well, of the wastewater plant, remember, our flows are 60% of the flows that go to the wastewater plant, and in Delray's is 40%. So Delray pays 40% of the bills.
Okay.
We pay 60. And then $300,000 for lift stations. So when you start adding all those together, it's $1.8 million in power bills. So it's a lot. And that's not counting our buildings and everything else.
So my question regarding that is that can we find ways to make our own energy through the utility bill?
It's a great question. We did look at that. We have a large generator project at the East Water Plant where we have to replace about 2 megawatts worth of power at the East Water. So we have a natural gas line there, so we looked at a natural gas generator. The problem was that the cost didn't, even with that high cost, even if it saved us 20%, it wouldn't pay for itself in 20 years. Because of the cost of the equipment is so high on that, in that individual generation still, it's not effective. As we build new structures, we're looking at energy efficiency. These costs are coming down. If you look at our new plant, there's a lot of energy efficient things we've put into it, so we've actually lowered cost of energy. The wastewater plant is a good example where we're getting ready to do a project where we may reduce that $1 million electric bill to $600,000 a year.
Okay.
So we're looking at ways to reduce energy all the time. The problem is self-generation is you have a lot of byproducts that you got to do something with, like hot water. That's what the problem is. In a plant, hot water is not a good thing. There's no place to put it. Now, in a downtown area where you have a lot of residents, and you generate power for like a district energy plant, and you want to generate your own power and you create hot water, then the hot water goes to the residents and it's used. So it's a very good method. And a wastewater plant, it's not. The other way you generate electricity in a wastewater plant is digestion of the solids. I'm getting too technical here, but all the solids that come in on wastewater, you can digest and make methane, and you can burn methane to make power. And many plants do that. Our particular wastewater plant doesn't treat the solids. It just simply hauls them up to the county. In about 8 years from now, that contract's going to be over, and one of the projects of the plant is looking at doing on-site generation using that methane that we can create on-site.
Okay.
So there's all kinds of things we're looking at. It's just, it takes time to implement them.
Methane is the natural gas.
Methane is natural gas.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So it's almost in the sense, if we look at I guess the cost of natural gas keeps on going down, and the price of generators go down, it's something we can look at in the next 3 or 4 years.
Absolutely. I don't think we're ever going to rule out producing power, decentralized power production. I don't think we'll ever rule that out. It just has to get to the point where it pays for itself.
Within 20 years.
Yeah, within a 20-year, or at least within the lifespan of equipment.
Okay. So the next thing is that, can we do something for, kind of like what we're doing with the solar trees or the canopies?
Oh, absolutely.
Is that something that we can do? Just,
the beach, the wastewater plant at the beach, all that solar we're putting out there is going to run that plant.
But we have to pay FPL for that solar.
But what happens is the solar goes to FPL and then we buy it back. But it is from what I'm saying is still a way to do it. Now, can we do our own?
Canopies, we'll see
where
how
we can,
well,
but it doesn't produce a whole lot of power for an energy plant.
So that's kind of where, I've been asked for the climate mayor. And so I would want to know exactly, what, using our wastewater plant over at Ocean Park, to see what exactly is the cost to generate our own power using the similar canopies.
We can get you that. We can get you that information, how much power we're using, how much we're generating with that solar. And whether it goes back in, it doesn't really matter. That's just semantics. But, it is really it's the power being generated on site. So we'll get you those numbers as we develop them. I think we're with the next series that Jeff's going to get installed, which is the canopies over the parking lot, right, Jeff? That's the next one. Once those are in, I think it's going to be generating more than enough just for that plant.
Okay, and so, we'd like to get that more into the city.
We'll get you the data. That's great data.
Yeah.
We want to get it to everybody.
Okay. I have one other question. The big old water things we have out there, you can't put nothing up on top of those? I'm just...
Which?
The
big water tank?
Yes.
It's a good question. There's not actually, it looks big, but there's not as much space as you think up there. It probably wouldn't pay for the cost to get up there because it's 168 feet high and it's real expensive to get up there.
Okay.
So it probably wouldn't pay. Now, you can walk up there inside, you can go inside that tower and walk all the way up to the ceiling if you want to walk up 168 feet of steps. And if you ever want to do it, we'll open it up for you and let you come out and do it.
No, we won't. Risk management.
Thank you.
We chain you up.
We had a former elected official want to do that, and we said no. You're not climbing 168 feet.
So, unless we chain you up and follow risk management thing. Julie's panicking.
Let me
Julie's gonna
ask
kill him.
another question. I'm just saying, because I never know what's in there. But when it goes up, is that water stored up there? It's just, what is up there?
Yeah, it's stored up there. What that acts as a big pump.
Okay.
We keep it up high, and as the system pressure drops in the system, some of it starts coming out because it's so high, it puts that gravity onto the system. So what it does is it helps us maintain the pressure in the entire system. So it holds about 1 million gallons, and it goes in and out to hold that pressure on the system. So that it holds about 1 million gallons of water. And the reason it's up high is because it saves us a lot of power, because otherwise we'd have to use ground pumps to pump it with power. So that is basically, there's no power going into using strictly gravity.
I'm asking a lot of questions.
No,
I'm
it's
after
great.
your job. I'm just
I love this stuff. So
I
Colin,
yes.
so what consideration have we given to potentially doing like a solar farm or something, rather than just staying at canopies? What about a solar farm? I know like Lake Worth has done that. What consideration?
Well, because we don't own an electric utility, it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to do it. It's
Right.
better for us to cooperate and work and get our citizens to work with FP&L, so FP&L builds them. And they have built several big solar farms. I know they just opened 2 more in North Florida, huge solar farms. And so I know FP&L is getting into that big, and it's probably for us, it's better to encourage our citizens, if they're interested, is to participate with FP&L's program, which then allows us to put more of it out in our city.
So, for example, as we go forward with downtown, I know we're requiring for, I guess, the developers to put in energy efficiency, but what about potentially building their buildings with solar roofs or solar panels on the facility rather than just creating a regular building that's energy efficient?
I was looking for Andrew. I'm going to try to answer this. If I'm wrong, he'll come up and hit me on the back of the head. But we do have a program in the building department that does encourage that LEEDs type building, and if they do, they get some incentives.
Right.
I can't tell you exactly what those incentives are, but there are some incentives in the code that if you do that, it helps, it saves you money in your project. So, and am I close, Andrew? He says I'm close.
All right, well, that's a conversation for another day, but I wanted to get back to this regarding your comments on raising the rates as inflation. So what about the times when we have spikes in inflation where, for example, the economy is not doing so great? So are we expecting to, hurt our customers in those times of the year or times of the future timing, I guess I'm saying?
Well, no. What we're recommending right now is we look at inflationary and we take averages, and those spikes do happen. When the spike happens, we would cap that. I would never, I think utility rates, the problem we have right now is if you leave them alone for 5 years, then you have to go 5 years where we're raising them 5 or 10% every year. And then you leave them alone for 5 years. And that's really not fair to them. It's better to adjust those slowly as things cost more. We are actually, what we're recommending is we're recommending that we set our rates up and first of all, our rates right now are stored in ordinance format. We'd like to put them in resolution format, so there's a rate resolution. It works better from a staff standpoint of how we produce those rates. We would recommend, we come to each year, and then we'd recommend in our policy, we write these policies that we cap that, whatever that inflationary. So if you have a spike, you go into your reserves. So we would cap it at some percentage. What we think, if you look at the federal government rates, you can look out. How accurate they are, I can't tell you. The federal government, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but they do forecast rates out 10, 20 years of what they think that's going to look like. And we can look at that and say, well, we think the cap should be 3%, no more than 3%.
Well, here's my problem. Problem with what you're proposing. And again, I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job because I'm pretty sure you thought through this really well. But, for example, a person who pays, $100 utility bill compared to somebody who pays a $300 or $400 utility bill, is that percentage assessed on what they're paying, or everyone pays a flat rate, and so basically one person is affected more than another?
No, it is based on what you pay. It's based on the commodity, the usage. So if you're using the typical 7,000 gallons a month or 5,000 gallons a month of water, your bill would be about $56 a month. And you would only see if it's, let's say the overall, let's say we were adjusting our rates by inflation, and that overall inflationary rate's like 0.5%. Everybody sees 0.5% on what they're paying, it's not a flat fixed fee. So yeah, your answer is it's fair across the board. Now, so the percentage is the same regardless of how much you're paying. It's the same percentage, so it's not flat. So it doesn't just disproportionately benefit those that are paying by bill. In fact, the higher your bill is, the more you're going to pay in the increase. So it's fair across the board. That's why I hope I'm explaining that right. Okay. So,
Colin, does the system also fluctuate conversely?
Yes.
Down if you have inflation rates?
Exactly.
drop?
If we had a system like this where we were adjusting, in 2009, 2010, the inflation rate actually was negative. And we would have actually lowered rates during those time frames when people were having a tough time. We didn't, because we had a rate increase package in place by ordinance that said for 5 years we're going to raise rates. And the reason we had that in place is because we didn't look at, we just, once every 5 years we took a one look at it and said we need this for the next 5 years. And we didn't look at what was happening with the economy. So what we're recommending we do is go back to where it's fair. We're looking at so if we have let's say we have another major recession and we go into negative inflation, which happens, the rates would come back down to match that negative inflation because we're paying less. And in reality, in utilities, you did pay less during those time periods. So it works both ways.
You get paid less because customers are not paying their...
Well, no, we get paid less, but also it costs less to do the business. Because when you have negative inflation, it means all your costs are going down, not up. Yeah. And right now, we're not in negative inflation. We're in a good point right now, about 2.2%. That's a very manageable inflation rate. So
So by resolution, when we do talk about that, I would like to see something that definitely does say that in times of negative inflation periods, we do decrease our rates, and we're not going to keep them just because we want to average or whatever our income is and bear that on the shoulders of the taxpayers, because that's not what this is meant for.
Yeah, and that's what I'm highly recommending. And I'm being honest with you, if we do that, we're going to be the only utility out there that's being fair to customers during bad times. And I think we can do it. And we can show you, the most powerful thing about this model is I can show you, looking out 20 years, that it makes the utility sustainable even if you do that. And that's the whole key is are we collecting enough money to pay the cost we need to pay to keep the high quality of service that we provide? And we can show that long term with those rates. I don't have the live model up here. We're going to do a workshop sometime. We're just going to invite people if you're interested in the really techie stuff, and we're going to show you how all this works.
Can you go back a slide for me, Colin?
Yes. Go.
Another one.
One more.
Okay, so here. So when you say, for example, the upper right and the lower left, how we're running in the negatives, what's your proposal to fix that? So are you saying
I'm going to show
inflation?
you.
Okay, you're good.
That's what I'm going to show you. So if we do this, if we adjust rates by inflationary numbers only, based on federal government indices, this is kind of what now that overall O&M cost. So you see some growth here, and this is again fixed because this is based on our cost, but you see some growth in revenue. And really, what the most important thing is this is what we're recommending. So what we're recommending is we're recommending a couple things. One is we're recommending if we do that, you can see sewer eventually gets up to paying for itself. Reuse never will. But what we've done is we're saying in water, we actually think in about 4 years from now we can reduce, or year 5, we can reduce rates 2.5%, and then we can reduce rates again. So if you see this, it's going up and then we're reducing. It's going up a little bit, we're reducing. And this difference is covering this cost right here. So what we want to do is we want to change the rates, and this is what we would do. We would bring you 1 year, but this is our plan right now for 10 years. Stormwater, to try to fix the problem, right now around us, most stormwater utilities are around $7 to $8 a month. We're at $5. So we're a little bit lower than everybody else. Now, I don't want to raise rates. I'd love to find a way not to. Unfortunately, stormwater is a big issue. We need to take care of these problems. You can see what's happening. So we're recommending not this year, not in next year's budget, the following year's budget. So that's in a year and a half from now. We're recommending a $1 increase. And then we're recommending the year after that another $1 increase. And then we want to sit stable for a little while to see if we can lower some cost. And then if we need to, we'll do another $1, get to the $8. And if it does, we're still subsidizing a little bit. But what we're hoping is as we get better at what we do, we actually lower these costs down below that. Every year we'll know that because we're going to go out another 10 years. So we're looking at 10-year cycle. So our recommendation in our resolution is next year no percent increases, just adjusting by inflationary numbers, period. That's what we're recommending next year, just to adjust by the inflationary numbers, which will be an overall small percentage, probably about 1.1% increase overall over all the utilities. And then the following year, and you guys will be able to see it again next year, is we would be recommending that $1 on stormwater, and then look at the inflationary numbers again. And what I'm saying is these inflationary numbers, because inflation raises things up, we can actually start lowering rates to try to get them in. Because the idea is you want that red line right on top of that line. That's sustainable. If we can get right on top of that line in every utility, you're sustainable. Right now, we're still going to do a little bit of subsidies out of one utility and the other. That's okay. I mean, that's a policy decision. But what it really does, and I want to go to the next slide, is now you see what reason we have to do it, is now the red line gets, and we're building back our reserves. That's the real key, is we need to keep the reserves so if something bad does happen, we have the money to pay for it. So if we get a spike in inflation, let's say we have another super inflation period, which was a long time ago that happened, but it could happen again, we could cover those with our reserves. So again, it goes back to trying to balance your rates so your rates are covering your cost for the utility. And again, we can show that in a model showing you that it's good for not just next year, but it's good for 10 years, 20 years, and we can even look out further than that. Oh, I was going to show you something too, is this is actually, now you're looking at these bars. What this says is that back in here we can start lowering rates, because we're saying we're going to have a negative. It means we're going to be making a little bit extra money so we can lower rates. So the beauty about this model is it allows you to set your rates of what you need, go up or down. And it's not a one-time fixed 2%, 3%, 5% every year for 5 years. So it's a new concept. I know, that's why I'm introducing it here. If you don't like it, we can certainly just come back with a fixed 5-year rate increase. But so this would be, and then this model creates these rate plans. And again, we're not asking you to approve the rates today. That would come back to you. So we're not asking for that today. We're just asking for this is the budget workshop. And so that's kind of what they would look like next year, which is actually almost the same as this year. It's a very, very small increase across the board. But what I want to get to is this.
Go back, please.
Sorry.
Thank you.
It's not the easiest chart to understand. I got to figure out a way to show this a little bit easier. The other chart.
So can you just give an average here, like for a regular, I don't know, 2-3 bedroom home?
Yes, I can.
Can you give
An average
of what these
3-bedroom,
rates mean?
2-bath home right now uses about 5,000 gallons, in our city, about 5,000 gallons a month. That bill is about, in the city, about $52 a month. With change for inflation, it'll still be around $52 a month. The change is so small that it won't, the variation is just simply where your meter ends up reading each month. Because if you're below, remember we read on 500 gallons. If you're 500 gallons, it goes down to the nearest 1,000. If you're 501 gallons, it goes up to the nearest 1,000. So one month you're getting 500 gallons, next month you're paying for 500 gallons. So you'll get a fluctuation of about $2.50 a month in your bill if you stay average throughout the year. Within that $2.50, you will not see this change. It'll be about maybe 15 cents a month, 20 cents a month. And I'm going to get you, when we come back to you, if you like this concept, we'll come back to you and give you those exact numbers. I can't. I want to wait to see if you like the concept first.
I'll go and say that, yes, I do like the concept of making it adjusted for inflation, where if there's a period of deflation and the economy is not growing, that prices would go down.
Right, and that's what we're proposing.
I like it, but I'm skeptical. I think, it always, again, English is not my first language, but what is it? The phrase that says, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Like, I know that this is a good and well-intended thing, but I just feel like what can go wrong, and that's what I'm asking you. What can go wrong?
Right.
I don't want to screw over our customers by trying to do something that supposedly helps them, and then it
So, Colin, we can put
backfires.
a cap on inflation.
Absolutely, and I would highly recommend that we do. We would have caps on both sides. Also, you ask what can go wrong in utilities. There's a couple things. One is we don't do a good job reading the data and building the projects correctly. So we say we need a 12-inch water line, and in fact, we need a 24-inch water line in a new plant. If you miss that, you've blown your rates. Now, we hire very good people so they don't miss those things, but you can do that. I've seen utilities do that where they've completely missed what they have to build. We believe we haven't missed that. We believe we've hired very good people that know how to look at this data. We have the data in a very powerful model that allows us to determine whether or not we're meeting the needs of the citizens. One of the things I didn't show you in this model, we can adjust the model based on growth rates. We're using a moderate growth rate right now. We can make it a high growth rate. We can adjust this model based on negative growth rates. We can adjust the model based on people conserving water. As more people conserve water, we'll raise that, and it'll adjust what projects we need to build. So it's a very powerful model to try to take what you're saying is absolutely right. It's the what ifs. And up until now, I've been in utilities, done utility stuff and public works and all this for 30 years. And what makes us nervous as managers is did we miss something? Because we set something we do a study, and then in 5 years we got to live by that study. And what if we miss something in that study? And it's very nervous. Now what we're saying is we're doing the study every month. We're not going to miss it because we're looking every month, and we're looking out 20 years. We're not going to look just at next 6 months. We're going to look out 20 years and 30 years.
Now, when you speak of growth rates, and you mentioned that you have it tabulated for a moderate growth rate, you're counting all these different apartments and condos and different things that are coming in Town Square that we're proposing, and all these high-density areas. You're accounting for all this.
Yeah, we're building in those growth rates of about 1 to 1.5%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a lot.
Right.
We have 112,000 customers now, citizens that we serve, so
when you show that map with those pressure points on the eastern coast of the city here, how does that affect these new customers that are going to be coming in and putting demand?
We have to build some projects to correct that. Absolutely. It does affect them if we don't build the project. So that's the purpose of the model, and in our capital plan is we have those projects spelled out that we have to build to meet that demand. Now, some of those are going to be built by the developers. Sometimes developers have to increase pipe sizes and all that to serve, so some of it the utility needs to do. Now, we're fortunate on the east side of 95 for all this high density is the city made some wise decisions 10 or, 8 to 10 years ago and built some big lines. So we have very large service lines, not the sidelines yet, but the service lines into all these areas that are growing. So we have enough water and capacity there. We've built some large pump stations to make sure we can take the sewer away. Now what we need to do is build all the little laterals that go to these developments, and probably 60% of those are built by the developers and about 40% by customers, because it's really outside of the developer's realm of responsibility. So, and those are all planned out. And again, it goes back to what can go wrong. That's what can go wrong if you don't plan that. And we're trying to cover all of that. And I know I'm going long, but we're trying to cover that in our plan. So we're looking out long term. That's what I'm trying to show is sustainable utilities are, you're looking out 20 years and 30 years. You're not looking just at 1 year or 5 years. You got to look out and see what's going to happen to you. Because utilities are one of those things you can't just turn off. There's other government services where we don't like it, we could stop doing if we absolutely had to. We don't like it. But water, if you turn it off, people die, because you can't live without clean water. So, we have a responsibility to look out. So that's kind of what we're recommending. We would like to bring something back to you in August. We'd like, we've shown you our plan, our next year's budget, but we'd like to bring you back that rate resolution in August and bring you back actual real bills, what it looks like.
Okay.
This average bill, this average bill, this average bill, what that looks like. And what it would look like with some other scenarios is if inflation went down. So here's inflation goes down. Here, if it goes up, spikes with our cap, what does it do? And we'll show you
And
those
I'd like to
things.
see a timeline scenario, not just 1 or 2, but
Yeah.
like 5, 7
Absolutely.
years out.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
we can
thank
do
you.
that. So if there's consensus with that, with that resolution, we'll bring it back because we have to do it in August. So we'll bring it back.
Before you move from there, I'm just saying, I hear a lot of my customers, rather citizens that lives in District 2 saying, my water bill is going up. I'm just saying, if John Doe would come down and say, can you check my house to see why my water is going up? Well, I know we have the meters for, we can check the meters. I'm just saying, they might have a leak in the house, so you all offer that service.
We do, and we're going to get better at that. One of the things we're trying to add to it is so customers can look at their own meters online if they want to, on their phone. They can look at what they're doing. The other thing we want to add is what I call leak detection. So if we see an abnormal use, if you sign up for the service, it'll text you and say, you got an abnormal use. So you can immediately go out there. Or if we see it really big, if you sign up for it, I don't even have a problem. We'd go out there and turn it off for you. Just say, hey, you got a problem. We don't want you to check it. Now, we do, if you have a leak, we do credits for leaks. So if you have a leak, I tell people all the time, don't be too scared. Find out the leak, get your plumbing, come in with your credit, and we offer a credit on that. But if we can catch those leaks early, because our meters can catch them, the question is we got to get that data back to the customer. And so that's the part we're working on now, because you're absolutely right. That's nothing more frustrating when you don't know you have a leak under your house and it leaks for a month, and then you get this huge bill and it scares you because now your bill is $400 and how are you going to pay it? We want to make sure we're catching that much earlier. We have the technology. We just got to get it rolled out so people can see it.
Is there anything on the meters at the homes? I'm just saying, go ding, I'm saying where your plan is, something like
not
that.
Not on the meters themselves. I don't think we'd want that. But again, we are getting 10-minute reads on every meters. So we can, if you sign up, it's one of those things is if people want to have that information, we're going to give them the ability to get the information. And if they don't want it, we're still going to look at those exceptions as staff and make a determination, do we need to contact that customer? Because if we see a huge spike, if we have a phone number or an email address, we're going to contact the customer and say, hey, you got a problem. And I think that's a good service to offer. We also will go out if customers need, this is as time allows, because we have we do work, but if a customer asks, hey, our bill seems to be going up, we don't have a leak, but we don't know what we're doing, we can go out and take a look at, we all the time help customers look at their toilets, do dye tests, things like that, find out if their toilets are leaking. A leaky toilet can raise your bill $50 a month.
You said
So-
if the customer themselves say they want to sign up, but as elected officials, can we mandate and say this is a service that we offer to the citizens of Boynton, and whether you want it or not, so that we can keep our utilities? I'm just saying, can we?
You could. That's totally up to you if you want to mandate that. You can say that to be a utility customer, you have to provide contact information to the utility that we can contact you if you have a problem. Yes, you can.
You mean?
I'm not sure we would recommend that at first, but you certainly can do that.
It could be an email
Email.
or
Yeah.
a phone number, text message. Great.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people we can't contact. All we have is a billing address.
Okay.
So,
I'm good. Thank you.
That sounds good.
all right.
Yeah.
We're done. Sorry, I didn't mean to go an hour.
No, no.
Thank you, Colin.
Yeah.
All right.
Jeff is up. So, okay, so I'm going to, is he getting it up? We're going to do the capital budget right now. We're going to let Jeff do it. I'm going to do the first slide real quick. I promise I'll be quick. What we really...
You can't keep on saying that.
Lori's laughing. I'm trying.
You can't keep on saying you're promising you're going to be quick. You just say, I'll do my best.
I'm going to do my best.
There you go.
Colin can fill an hour easily.
Yeah, but nobody's asleep, right? Is anybody asleep? All right.
For now.
Sorry, you get me on things I'm passionate about. Go to the next slide real quick. Oh, I can do it. We're going to talk about, what we really want to do today is Jeff's going to go through this presentation on the capital budget. We'd love to try to get through it and then do questions, but if you have a burning question that you just have to ask on a particular slide, feel free. But we really would like to try to get through it because there's a lot of capital projects this year, and they're really broken up, into the non-surtax. We have the three areas of funding, the non-surtax, the 1 penny, and the golf course, and those are the funding amounts. And we're going to be presenting the projects in alphabetical order. So that's why I said if you wait to the end, you might see what about this project? Well, it may come because it's just lower in the alphabet. We're going to start with the Surtax. All the stuff you're going to see first is the Surtax projects, then we'll go into the non-Surtax projects, and the golf course project we'll cover when he comes up and covers his golf course presentation. So we'll do that like last. So with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Jeff and let Jeff run.
Before you go, in the Surtax thing, I'm just saying, will it give us an idea, like money for sidewalks? I'm just saying before we go into...
Yeah, well, Jeff, why don't you bring them up to date what we're doing this year with the Surtax real quick as a start.
Okay, Jeff Livergood, Director of Public Works. You'll recall this year...
Is it on?
Hello?
It's on.
Recall this year, we've dedicated around $3 million of the anticipated surtax revenue that we'll be getting this fiscal year. We're in the process of designing street improvements, sidewalk replacement, and pavement marking projects. Our street improvement projects include patching on virtually every public street in the city, sidewalk repair on a vast majority of streets in the city, and upgrading the thermoplastic pavement markings. It's been quite an endeavor because when you put a project like that together, you just don't say we're going to patch $800,000 worth of sidewalk. You have to actually go out and walk every street and note where these failures are. You have to develop the plan. The plans, I would say it's probably 80% prepared. We've got a number of small projects out for bid now, getting ready to bring to you a couple $100,000 striping program. So the sidewalks and the pavements are proceeding this year. The actual construction work will extend beyond the end of this fiscal year, but the dollars will either roll or we'll encumber the funds simultaneously while we're working on next year's capital project list. When we get into the specific projects and you look at the CIP, you'll see that for the next several years we will not have any sidewalk or street projects in the capital because we're putting so much emphasis on it this year. Okay, thank you. Tony, leave this one up real quick for the time being. We've all kind of, for the last year and a half, lived the surtax. I have in particular because when the surtax first became an issue for the ballot, each of the cities submitted to the League of Cities its list of projects that we believe were surtax eligible. That was very easy for us to do. We simply submitted to them our 5-year capital plan. And our 5-year capital plan included projects that
Make you get this up.
added up to about $4.2 to $4.3 million per year. It was eerie in a way that our project list added up to what we believe that we'll get on anticipated revenue in the surtax. As Colin noted, we have two primary CIP funds. We call them the 302 and the 304 fund. That's internal. The 302 fund is the non-surtax funds. That's the old capital plan. That is a plan that we can use for new endeavors. It's a plan, the 302 fund has an existing fund balance, and we'll talk a little bit later about why we're going to spend some dollars from that. And and how we're going to work into using 2 capital plans. We've taken our capital project list that's maintenance related or surtax eligible, and we've created a new 303 fund. And from that, we'll be spending the dollars, the surtax dollars that were allocated to us. For me, the capital planning process this year has been no different than any other prior year, and our capital plan that we've prepared is essentially the same capital plan that you've seen the last number of years. We've added a few smaller projects, changed prices on some, moved some around based upon priority. But for the most part, our capital plan for the next 5 years is similar to what we've been anticipating for the last few years. One exception, the town square, that's a new element into it. So for us, from a planning perspective, the only difference is that the influx of the surtax supplants or takes the place of debt. I'm very pleased that for the first time in a number of years, we're actually submitting to you a 5-year capital plan that is funded. In prior years, we submitted to you the same capital plan, almost the same plan that you're going to see today, that was not funded, that relied on debt. If you recall prior capital plans, it relied on the issuance of multi-million dollars worth of debt just to fund maintenance. And you probably recall me the last several years in these meetings talking about my concern to actually borrow money to repair and to maintain infrastructure and assets that we already own. So I just wanted to note staff's perspective of the surtax dollars, because there's an awful lot of discussion both in Boynton Beach and county-wide about the surtax dollars as how we're going to spend them. And frankly, I don't consider the surtax dollars found money. The surtax dollars are funds simply to replace the debt that we would have incurred had we not gotten the surtax dollars. So from a staff perspective, it doesn't really change anything except we now have money in the bank. Again, I've been living the surtax. We've put together our project list based upon what we think the intent of the initiative, the ballot initiative that was passed by the taxpayers. It's also based upon Section 202 in Florida statute as to what surtax dollars can be spent on. So we pay attention to that. And I'm also getting a different perspective on it, because I think that you all may remember that you placed me on the League of Cities Surtax Oversight Committee. We just had a meeting last Friday where we reviewed a number of capital project lists from about 10 different communities in Palm Beach County. So for me, it's a bit different sitting on your side of the table and evaluating other communities' projects to make sure that they meet the intent of the ballot initiative for the surtax funds. So if we can, I'd like to go over the surtax dollars. And you've got before you the 5-year plan for surtax. And before we get into the individual projects, you'll note in the blue column that we have a number of projects planned for 17-18. And we'll go through those in a few minutes. I don't plan on going through any projects beyond that. But you'll also notice that there is a column titled Town Square Projects. And this is a discussion that I think that we need to have before we move further. That you'll recall in the prior year capital plans, we had a number of improvements in City Hall. There's a few minor things that needed work in City Hall, if you'll recall. We had maintenance needs in the library, the Civic Center, the Art Center. Those had been anticipated 5 years out. We created a column, we called it Town Square, and we took the projects that we were going to be spending in the next 5 years on these Town Square municipal building elements, and we put them into one column. That column adds up to, I believe, $4.4 million? $4.612 million. We recognize
Jeff, I'm not
that
going to stop you, but what you're showing us is you didn't have it for the public to see on the screen.
there's handouts here in the back for them.
Is it this one?
Yeah, it's this one. Yeah, it's
Yeah, y'all need to let them
We
know.
made some extras too,
Yeah.
so.
so. So we have a number of projects that we're planning for 17-18 to use the surtax dollars, but we're allocating the $4.6 million of surtax dollars in fiscal year 18-19 to the Town Square project. And I wanted to show that very clearly because we believe there is a good rational nexus to using the surtax dollars for the Town Square project, because absent the Town Square project, for example, we would have spent $750,000 on City Hall switchgears and generators. We would have done it without the Town Square project. Okay. But I wanted to point that out. We're going to have, in 17-18, we're going to do $4.6 million worth of projects that are out in the neighborhoods, in the community. 18-19, all of the surtax dollars are currently planned to go to the Town Square project, and then we'll restart in earnest the projects throughout the community in 19-20 and on. That is one major change to this capital plan from the prior year, because we're moving forward with the Town Square project. Okay? And think about it, those dollars were at one point in our capital plan to work on City Hall, but they were to work on City Hall specifically. All we've done is reallocated them to the needs of the Town Square project. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yep.
Groovy. If we can then, what I'd like to do is, in a different format, rather than showing everybody this huge list, is to go through the slideshow presentation that we've prepared, to kind of go through them project by project. And as it noted, we're going alphabetical, so it kind of goes through the master list in an alphabetical order. And so as we get started, these are all surtax funding. One of the projects we're going to be working on is a Boynton Beach Boulevard extension. This is Boynton Beach Boulevard west of Federal Highway going out to the Intracoastal Waterway. We like to show this picture because it's the prettiest. But the extension for us really goes from Federal Highway to the west. And if you know the Marina Towers project, Boynton Beach Boulevard, the planter boxes that are pavers, they're just hit all the time. So our plans are to repair them and to repair irrigation at those planter boxes.
And with that project, you're partnering with the CRA to complete that, yes?
No, we're doing it all with city funding.
And
We'll take any dollars that you all would like
Am I
to.
mistaken when Mike told us that they were partnering
Yeah.
with the CRA, the city, to do that?
yes.
Yeah, we'll work with the CRA on it, yes.
Yeah, that was $125,000 in the CRA budget.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So-
that's something that we've been discussing.
Yes.
We're working with Kinley Horn. I don't know if it may not be.
Yeah, I just want to say, yeah, Mike and I have been working on that. Jeff's not involved yet because it hasn't come out as Kimberly Horn CRA yet. So, but yes, we are going
This
to
is the
be
project.
sharing it with.
Okay, and
I thought that
so,
was separate. Aren't we talking about two different things here?
No,
'Cause
it's the
Kimberly
same
Horn is-
extension.
Right.
It's just that they're going to do parking and all that, and Public Works
Yes.
is going to be doing the planter box repairs and the landscaping irrigation repairs and all
Yes,
that.
I'm aware of that project, but no, their work isn't necessarily the
Yeah.
planter boxes, but the two will meld together.
Right.
Correct.
and
Okay,
there's
so
two
let
sets
me,
of planter boxes.
let me ask my question, please. So Kimberly Horn, from what I understand, is working with us to develop Boynton Beach Boulevard from 95 to Federal. This plan is for the city and the CRA, for our conversation is what I remember, to merge their finances and help re-improve that area because of all the damage that was going on. Am I not understanding that correctly?
Correct.
Okay,
You're dead on.
good. All right.
Okay, and so my question is that are we getting rid of the planter boxes that everyone has been hitting along the road?
We are going to be rebuilding the planter boxes in a different way, because those planter boxes fixed the soil elevation for the plants and the trees inside those planters, and those trees, the landscaping has grown to that elevation. If we tried to lower the elevation of the planter boxes, we would have to remove all the landscaping and start over, because there's a certain elevation that the plants are.
So I know that this is not an old project, it's been 12 years, I guess. I was informed that we didn't build these planter boxes, that whatever project was, and so that there was problems with irrigation. Is this going to be reclaimed water, or is it going to be potable water for this area?
It's, potable water is the plans at this point until reclaim's in that area.
Yeah, reclaim's not available right there yet. When it is, we connect all city properties as reclaim's available to reclaim.
Okay.
Just is not available there yet.
And so this, the parking there is meant for the commercial spaces, or commercial activity, I guess, along the marina, is that correct?
It's for that, it's for the public to the restaurants, it's public parking and open for anyone that wants to use it.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff, what guides are you going to be using to stop these planter boxes from being damaged again? You say you're going to...
Well, the number one goal to look forward is the bumper overhang of vehicles to make sure, if you'll notice, we tried to put bumper stops in. Anybody see those?
Nope.
We put bumper stops in, the traditional, to try to keep people from backing into the planters, and somehow people climb up over those as well.
So when do we acknowledge that it was just bad engineering and planning, just get rid of them?
Well, we've kind of known it for a number of years now, but it's not been a project that could be reasonably completed, given the funding. And
So I'm saying now that we're funding it, should we not avoid making the same mistake twice?
oh, we're not going to make the same mistake. The planters will be constructed in slightly different configurations, different locations, given bumper overhangs, so vehicles, when they hit the curbing, will not hit the planters.
When?
And
Not
if they do hit the planter will probably do more damage to the bumper than the bumper damaging the planter.
So is this what we're saying about our drivers in Boynton Beach?
Next slide.
Visitors.
Schoolhouse Children's Museum, it's one of our treasures, built in 1913. We're going to paint the exterior, and we've got some minor soffit repair work. I think that project's self-explanatory, but it gave me an excuse to put up a pretty picture. Public Works compound, built in 1988.
Sorry to stop you, Jeff. Are we expecting any, can you go back? With Town Square, will there be any changes or any adjustments to this building that we have to account for, that will be spending money and it will potentially be damaged with Town Square being built?
Yeah, not to the building.
Not to the structure itself. In other portions of the capital plan, we had contemplated repair of some of the plaza area. We've kind of pushed that out a few years to see how the Town Square plan develops. We may or may not have to repair plaza area depending upon the final planning of the Town Square.
Okay. And that is a nationally registered historic facility, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so we can't touch.
We're going to go for global next.
Good.
Okay.
Jeff, wouldn't it be smarter to hold off on the painting until this Town Square dust and debris settles?
I want the building painted.
Why paint it now when it's going to get
the
all mucked
soffit
up?
repairs, I don't think that it's really, it's not going to change the colors. If anything, it would just get dirty. It needs it now.
Right. I'm just saying, you know, as elected officials, I look from City Hall over to the building, and right at the back of it, right around the top, there's rust.
Yeah.
I noticed it.
Yeah, we need to do it now. The Public Works compound, primarily the buildings need to be painted. We're going to seal coat the parking lot. You see the fuel tanks in the background. We paint those every 3 to 4 years. Public Works compound used to have underground tanks. We went to above-ground tanks. Does anybody remember the reason why?
So you can move the operation over to where CarMax is very easily.
Half of it, I think you said well publicly. The other half, that's so if we ever needed to relocate them, but it does give us some of the expense of maintaining above-ground fuel tanks, but my goodness, that's better than worrying about below ground.
Let me ask the question, because it comes up every 4 or 5 years. Are we looking at relocating Public Works, or this just a dream, you know?
Well, Commissioner, you remember that years ago,
I remember.
relocation of Public Works compound, I think it goes back to the 2000-2001 budget. It's been there forever.
Yeah, I remember when you built it.
The goal of that project was to move the compound to an area separate from a residential area as a first goal, and second, because of the deficiencies within the compound. Both of those goals have taken a back seat, knowingly, to the fire assessment and the improvement to the fire stations, to the police station. We rebuilt the library. We've done a number of other community buildings, and the Public Works compound has not been completed. Frankly, from an operations perspective, we get our work done from this facility. The only problem that we have with the Public Works compound is our fleet maintenance bay. We've talked about that a little bit in the strategic plan. We have a number, and I think you've probably all been through the Public Works compound and seen us fixing a fire engine or a solid waste vehicle outside. So we know that the fleet maintenance bay is critical, and we've got some ideas for that in years 6 through 10 of the Surtax capital list. But right now, this city has other priorities that are higher, and we need to complete those first. This will get us through one of the things you see. I mentioned fleet maintenance bay. We want to paint the interior of the fleet maintenance bay and kind of brighten it up on the interior and get some better lighting. We have some ADA improvements, yard drainage. Any police officers ever been through, and firefighters been in our Public Works compound after a good rain? You cannot get fuel because the water completely surrounds the fuel tanks. So we've got a minor drainage project we want to work on. And then the last but not least, we want to talk about some scoping and some preliminary design to simply replace or relocate the fleet maintenance bay only. That can be a standalone facility. And replace some minor air handling units so the office staff doesn't complain about the heat. Betty Thomas Park, used to call it Southeast Neighborhood Parks, now Betty Thomas Park. It's down on Southeast 2nd Street. It was built in 2007. We are going to just be doing basketball court markings and ADA improvements. It's in our capital plan because that's where it has always been. Boynton Lakes Park is up in the northwest section of the city in Boynton, on Boynton Lakes Boulevard. If you know the park, it's 8 acres of pretty much open space. There is a small playground. There's a fitness trail, a pathway around. So we're planning on seal coating the parking lot, replacing the furnitures, the cans and the benches. Remember yesterday I was talking about the TLC crew? When you start doing cans and benches, those are some of the things that the public notices. When you throw things away in a rusty, yucky garbage can, you notice it, but when you replace them periodically, the public sees that you're renovating and doing things. The fitness stations along the way we're going to replace. I want to talk to Wally and Amy. We've got some ideas on a new design. We're going to resurface the pathway. The pathway, when we resurface it, will be ADA compliant. The playground equipment is due for replacement. Met with a couple of residents who would like to position benches that are conducive to watching children on the playground, so we'll work with recreation on that. And there's a little gazebo there off in the background behind one of the palm trees that we're going to paint. And talking to one of the residents, we talked about what we could put in that gazebo that could be used. I kind of like the concrete chess sets, but we'll talk with recreation and see if we got some other ideas. But
Jeff,
that's important.
resurfacing the pathway, the walking path that goes around the property?
That's going to be resurfaced completely. There'll be a number of places that are patched and then overlay the remainder of it.
Jeff?
Yes?
Go back one, please, to Betty Thomas. That's a pretty picture. Not sure if the reality looks that good, but the water fountains that are there by the...
Yes.
And also by the basketball court. What are we doing with those water fountains? Is there any way that we can change them out and put something that doesn't allow for kids to keep, or whoever's doing it, to keep dropping those, you know what I'm trying to say, I can't remember, I can't think of the term, the mulch.
Yes.
Keep dropping mulch in there, it keeps just clogging up, and it's always a constant problem.
It's going to be a constant problem. When you have drinking fountains in parks, they're a high maintenance item. And what's frustrating for us, and the reason that you see these types of things, our parks crews make a once per week visit to this park. Remember I talked yesterday about the crew activities in the TLC?
Right.
A crew goes to Betty Thomas Park perhaps on Wednesday mornings, and that's when they service everything. Thursday morning, someone can plug up the fountain.
Yeah.
And we may not know it until the following Wednesday. And so when you see it and when other members of the public see it, we don't take it negatively when they call us to tell us. We appreciate it so that we have an opportunity to fix it.
So
It's
now,
nature of the beast.
these two new positions that you're proposing, the TLC crew, I think is what you call them, so they'll be helping with situations like this, passing by more often, I would hope. What is the intention?
That would be a normal crew activity. If I start having them do the repairs for those types of things, then they're not upgrading and changing appearance. So this is a regular crew activity that it would not be wise to defer or to reassign the TLC crew to this, because then they're not accomplishing their other goals.
So basically, you want the public to keep calling you every time we see that water fountain
It helps.
plugged up.
We hate to say it, but it helps. You know, obviously, we could put staff on to drive to every park once, twice, 3 times a day to see if the garbage cans are full, if somebody's destroyed a park. We've all had issues, and I've gotten calls from each one of you about things that have happened in parks through the course of a day. And if you're there at 8 o'clock to service a restroom, there's no guarantee that at 1 o'clock somebody's not going to have a problem in it and completely destroy a toilet. Unless you're wanting the staff to go to these facilities constantly throughout the course of the day, the best you can do is once per day with a custodial crew, and for the remainder of the park, once per week with the parks crew. And then rely on the public. We can't be embarrassed or ashamed because someone has to call and tell us, because the alternative is to fund it.
Okay. Thank you, Jim.
Carolyn Sims Center and the Denson Pool, I combined them. This year we're going to be painting both of the buildings, both the pool building and the Sims Center. There's a pavilion in the back and a metal table that we believe that we can provide a painting to. And the pool fence we are going to replace. We've already got some ideas on different designs. We'll be working with Recreation on that. Interim, we're doing some spot painting because the fence is pretty nasty. So we'll be upgrading that.
Is it going to be a chain link fence?
No, I don't want to put a chain link fence in. We're talking about a decorative aluminum fence, the vertical posts. We got some ideas, but we haven't worked through them all yet.
All right, my take is when you put whatever you're going to put in, make sure that it's not so that a child can slide through, because at night they slide through and they go swimming.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Jeff, what are we doing for security down there? In light of that, they've been throwing lifeguard and equipment into the pool and the furniture into the pool. So what are we going to do for security down there?
That will be one of the considerations when we look at the fence design to see how we can impact security. You know, I think that the reality is unless we're willing to really go to the extreme, sometimes it can be difficult to keep people out of facilities. And
I'm afraid of liability. Somebody sneaks in there at night, like they've been doing, and goes in and drowns in that pool. They're going to be hung out to dry.
we will be following all reasonable standards for fencing and closing it off. And we'll work with Recreation, and we'll work with PD to see if there's anything more that we need to do. But we're not trying to build a stockade or we want to maintain a reasonable appearance. We're not going to put razor wire on top of it, for example.
Thank you.
You know, so it's a tough balance. Now, as I go through these, keep in mind there are other long-range improvements planned in these facilities, not just the improvements that you see here. Hester is a very, it's going to take us some work this year. We're putting $632,000 into Hester. We have a lot of park furnishings, again, path repairs. We have some additional office, some minor lobby repairs, but when you look at the offices adjacent to the lobby, we have water infiltration from the outside that's starting to destroy the walls. Irrigation repairs.
We didn't get that repaired when we just did what we did?
We didn't know the full extent of it, and we've done some exploratory work. It's in a separate area, so we're going to get it done this year now. The irrigation repairs, if I recall the exact number, is close to $300,000. Colin talks a little bit about pipe, and I should have brought some show and tell today. A lot of the main irrigation lines out there are 4-inch PVC pipe that are down to about 1.5 inch diameter PVC pipe because of all of the material on the inside diameter of the pipe. And when you're supposed to push 4 inches of water through 1.5 inches of pipe, you have irrigation problems. You have problems getting the pressure and the coverage that you need. When you have those irrigation problems, you now have problems maintaining your turf. So irrigation's incredibly.
Speaking of the irrigation, are we going to help replace the sod? Because last game that the Wildcats played, it was dirt.
The irrigation will help us to renovate the sod, and then we always work closely with the Wildcats to get time to let the field rest. That's the biggest issue that we have with these multi-purpose or these play fields. We used to have the problem with the Little League, was to allow these fields time to rest. Because we all know if you're constantly on turf, it never grows back. So you've got to give it time to rest. Some miscellaneous fence repairs, ADA
Excuse me,
implementation.
why are the pipes filling up with whatever it's filling up with? I'm just saying out there, the PVC pipes, why are they filling up with?
It's the rust and the material, because they're wells. So it's pulling the rust and the ground material, some of the fine solids. And they just fill the inside of the pipe, in the pipe edges. And
So this is
it's normal.
It's well water. It's not
well water. Yeah, last year we did the well. Now we know we've got a good well. Now we've got to get the distribution system repaired.
Okay.
That's 20 years of continuing failure. Going to work with recreation, part of the old baseball field. We're going to repurpose that into a multi-purpose field. We have a number of pavilion repairs, and we have a number of HVAC units throughout the facility that we'll be maintaining. Intracoastal Park Clubhouse. This is one of those facilities that we try to maintain at a higher level. The park itself was built in '03 and the clubhouse in '07. You'll notice last year we did some work on the upstairs portion of the clubhouse, redid the flooring and the walls. Again, that's kind of that TLC thing that when the public goes in every few years, they see that something's been upgraded. We've got some audio-video upgrades that we're going to do up there. Carpeting is a constant. We're going to seal coat the parking lot, and the pavilions outside, we're going to refurbish the restrooms. So anybody that went to the 4th of July and used the pavilion restrooms, hopefully by the time they go for the next year's 4th of July, they're going to have new stall dividers, new paint, new floors, new vanity tops, new mirrors. So they'll see major improvements in those restrooms. $135,000 there. JC Park, we got $64,000.
Excuse me, before you go, while you over by the Intracoastal, we had a citizen that came before us and said about the boat ramp. Y'all going to discuss that today?
That's under O for Oyer.
Oyer, all right. Well, I'm just making sure.
Yeah. JC, $64,000. The little pavilions, I believe there are 1, 2, 3 of them, 4 maybe. Paint those. The exteriors of the restrooms will be painted. The seal coat the parking lot. We're going to start a process to repair the poured-in-place play surface and work on some of the interpretive markers. There's been some work done. We may do a little bit more. With the playground, we have a plan over a period of the next 5 years to work with the poured-in-place surface at the playground, to repair some, to remove some, to put in mulch. If you visit the site, there is one heck of a lot of poured in place in areas where children may not necessarily be playing on play apparatus. And the poured in place is a very costly thing to continue to maintain. So we're, over a period of 5 years, we're going to try to find that balance of what should be poured in place, what should be playground quality mulch, and then design that around the playground itself. Because within a number of few years, the playground will be replaced. Knollwood Park, we are going to be seal coating the parking lot. That's not a picture of. We have a picture of the pavilion, and I think Commissioner Casella knows how often that thing rusts. Laurel Hills Park.
Jeff, going back to Knollwood, the pavers there, I think I've mentioned them to you have been sinking.
Yeah.
Has that been, I haven't been over there.
That's something we're going to do in-house. It's not going to be on a capital project list.
Okay. What about the walking path? Are you going to reseal that walking path?
Not yet. That's a couple years out in the plan. So if you take a look at that, it's contemplated. Let's see, I can probably tell you.
Did we ever get the rust issue solved there? I know we paid like $5,000 to have the gazebo painted about a year ago, and it started to rust through. Did we?
Nope, we didn't. And that's not going to get fixed permanently until we replace the gazebo with something completely different. When you look at the gazebo, you see all the circular elements with the horizontal elements, and those are all rusts.
I know it well,
Welds,
Jeff.
and it's, let's see, overlay the path is scheduled in year 25.
You get 25.
Yeah,
That's
25,
not-
26.
That's not a couple of years out,
No,
Jeff.
it's not.
Well, in Public Works time it is.
Sorry.
Have you seen the path, Jeff? Have you?
I haven't
Is
walked
that
it.
something we can
I haven't walked
expedite?
it. There are some areas where we know we'll replace in-house and repair in-house with our crews. This is where you're going to come through and do patching and overlay the whole thing. That doesn't mean that there's no repairs between now and then, that there will be some interim.
That park gets a lot of uses,
Yeah.
a lot of walkers.
It sure does. Sure does. Laurel Hills Park, basketball court restoration basically is just overlaying the basketball court. Mangrove Park. Talk a little bit more about this beyond just this year. We're anticipating around $50,000 worth of improvements to refurbish the restrooms. You see right there in the photo, you've got the interpretive markers that are faded. So we have money in for the interpretive markers. We'll find some people that will help us to figure out what to place on those. I don't want to place exactly the same thing that's there. If you put something new on it, people will notice that it's new. Cans and benches will be replaced. If you look at the parking lot, there's fence that's falling down, and we've got some minor ADA improvements. Longer range, when we talk about this park, you all know that we brought you a couple of years ago an engineering analysis that said you better think about closing this, given the structural components. We've been working with the county and our own staff to try to figure how to utilize portions of this aluminum boardwalk, aluminum walkway. We're trying to repurpose some of it to go over to Oyer Park for the fishing pier.
Okay.
So we're going to try to remove some of this material and move it to somewhere else without destroying or changing the intent and the purpose of the mangrove park, to educate the public about the mangroves and get them out to see the water. So we have to wait until after 2019 because the improvement, the grant funding improvement that we had with the county requires us to make no major improvements until then. But I just wanted to give you a heads up because that's been something that we've been talking about for a few years, right?
Jeff, didn't we apply, was it for this, that we applied for some grants to help with shoring up those?
We did, and we were not successful, if I recall, Deb. No. Mangrove Walk, yeah.
That was also the water project that we lobbied for at the state that got all the way into the budget, but then got vetoed. So we didn't get that money either. We'll keep persisting. We keep reapplying each year at the legislative level
Right.
for budgetary appropriation.
How much, what's the number that it would cost to get that park safe and fully operational?
Well, it's when we were looking at it, it was about $1.7 million if we repaired the whole thing. We're thinking we're going to be in the range of $900,000 to $1 million if we don't repair the whole thing, repurpose some of the materials over at Oyer Park and solve that $300,000 problem there, all at the same time for the $900,000 to $1 million. So
How much would the water project give us?
I don't recall how much we were applying for.
We applied for, I'm trying to remember, 350?
I don't. What did we apply for?
I can't recall off the top of my head. Something's telling me 350 because there were limitations, but I'd have to look it up.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a priority, we go for it again?
We're trying to, we're trying to
It's on
cut
our list every year.
We're going to try to do something good both here and at Oyer and cut the price in half.
Okay, I look forward to that.
Mangrove Walk at the Marina. Let's see, how many remembers the old wooden boardwalk that went through the middle of the pond that paralleled about 3 years ago? We took it out, and we did the wooden overlook, and we still have the pavilion. We have the pathway that's been there for years, and we need to overlay it and change elevation on a number of parts of it, hence the ADA cost of about $49,500. So that's the primary improvement there. I'm going to give you a personal aside here. I would love to see the city start using the area. When we built these overlook areas, we built in power that you could do minor, small events out there to pull the public back there. I know the residents of Casa Costa would like to do something out there every once in a while. It's kind of a cool place.
Jeff, did you handle some of the complaints that came from those residents about people being in the back there and some loitering and other activities that were going on back there?
We have. I've met with the leadership of the Casa Costa Board. I attended one of their meetings, and we're going to be working with them. If you know
Lighting, I know, was an issue.
Yeah, if you know the area, we have our pathway. There's a series of bushes, and then they have their pathway. The bushes are tall, and the police department will tell you that when you have tall bushes like that, you give places for bad guys to hide.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is talking with Casa Costa as to how we can make improvements in the coming 5 years or so with low-level lighting, removal of bushes, different landscaping that opens up both of those pathways that work for the benefit of both, for the better safety of both, and hopefully for lesser cost of both. But you got to get both parties talking to each other, and we've got the dialogue started, so we'll see where it goes.
Okay, let's keep talking.
Yep. Meadows. Meadows Park is up off of North Congress Avenue. If anybody's ever driven it, it is a heavily utilized park. It's probably one of the most heavily utilized out of some of our premier parks. So we have $327,000 budgeted for next year for improvements. Again, the all-famous restroom refurbishment and painting. We don't want mommy to feel gross when she goes in the bathroom. Fitness trail equipment there as well. So we'll be upgrading some of those. New tables, cans, and benches all the way around. You know, frankly, one of the things that the Surtax is doing for us is it's enabling to get new picnic tables, new garbage cans, new benches, rather than some of these old rust buckets that we got out there that you wouldn't want to sit on or throw anything away. Pathways need repair there as well. There's a portion of the tennis court fence that needs to be repaired. We're going to seal coat the parking lot. And playground equipment. We're very much looking forward to playground equipment. I would encourage you to, if you want to go play this afternoon, I'll go with you. This playground has a slide that's been out of commission for a while. And we get calls from the public wanting to know why. When you're dealing with playground apparatus that's 10 and 12 years old, it's sometimes hard to find a replacement slide to fit it. And so sometimes it can take us a while to find that element. So we're very happy that we're going to be replacing the entire playground in its entirety. Hopefully we'll find a brand of playground that's going to be around 10 years from now that'll still have replacement parts. It's not quite a Ford Edsel, but...
Jeff, how come every slide you showed me, all these parks here, everyone's getting their repair to pathways except for Knollwood? That's not going to be till 2026. Can you explain that?
I'd be glad to look at it again. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
He hadn't got the Hester, Sarah Sims.
Every park you've shown so far is getting their pathways fixed or elevated, ADA compliant, the whole 9 yards, and we're not out there till
And Knollwood
2026.
Knollwood is the newest pathway of all of these.
And it's probably one of the heaviliest used.
Oceanfront Park, $387,000 worth of improvements. The lower parking lot lights we're going to be improving. It's more of an issue of corrosion failure at the top of the poles where the fixture attaches. Removing the north and the south sails and poles. That's part of the FPL canopy project. So that is a new project in our budget to remove those. We're going to remove them below ground level, fill the cores, and repair some of the textured colored concrete where those exist. We're going to refurbish the center sails and
Go back there.
poles.
Who wrote that sentence? Remove and north and south sail and...
Remove, okay, take the first "and" out.
Go ahead.
Jeez, you're a tough crowd.
God, it's that one.
The center sails and poles, we're leaving the center sail. That's around the restroom area, the main plaza area. That doesn't change the fact that those poles are rusting as well. We've got a few tricks up our sleeve with some different type of piping materials to place around those poles that'll help to hide the corrosion, because plastic doesn't corrode. So we've got some ideas of what we're going to do on those. If you've noticed, the retaining wall on the steps going from the upper level to the lower level is starting to fail. We are going to replace the playground, but we also want to look at a long-range plan with recreation as to how to take advantage of the elevation differences with playground equipment in the future. There may be some opportunities there. Seal coat parking lot and ADA. Anytime that we've been seal coating parking lots, we're addressing ADA needs. And the beachfront pavilions, the restrooms and the open areas are going to be painted on the exterior as part of work next year. Oyer Park, $120,000 here. Most all of the work that's being done is going to be at the Coast Guard building, and the Coast Guard, the pavilion I called it, next to the Coast Guard building, and ADA improvements. The restrooms that were placed a few years ago in cooperation with the county, we're going to paint the exterior. We actually, as staff, added a new dumpster enclosure because we figure if we're going to require everybody else in the city to have a dumpster enclosure in this high visibility park, we should have one as well. You'll notice the ramp engineering study assessment. We're not ocean engineers, so we're going to have a consulting firm give us an assessment of what type of improvements we need to make to the ramps to give us a 20-year life out of the ramps. We are doing some interim repairs within a couple of weeks for around $9,000 that I think is going to buy us 3 to 4 years. So once we do the assessment with the engineering analysis, in next year's capital plan, we'll be able to show the proper year and the proper cost to repair those ramps for the users.
Jeff, there's another building where I guess they take the fee to use the ramp. Is that building going to get repaired or replaced soon?
It's the Coast Guard building.
Is that, because I know there's the Coast Guard all the way in the back.
Oh, the front.
Yeah,
The one that sits out front.
the one that sits out front where the entrance building.
Oh, that entrance building.
Yes.
It's not in the plan at this time. We've typically maintained that in-house and on any minor repairs that have needed. It's not.
I remember I went
It's not
in there. I
jumping to
saw
the top
that
of
one
the
time they
list.
had a almost a store there,
Yeah.
and so I just want to know how can we use that space more? How can we use that space better?
Yeah, and that would be something we work out with the recreation staff as to how they would like to use the space or what they envision as the building.
Okay, so I guess that's more of a next year thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to reiterate what you're saying about the 90,000, is that now we can, residents can use those little areas and stand off them because they're all blocked out now? Is that what you're talking about?
The ramps? If you're talking the boat ramps, one of the problems we...
Boat ramps, like the areas where you can walk out and stand there and fish or something.
Oh, the
they're all
fishing
blocked
pier.
off.
The
Yeah.
fishing pier. If you've noticed, if anybody's walked the fishing pier in the last 6 weeks, you notice that our in-house public works staff did work on the railings, shored those up. We did some structural work underneath it. We spent a couple of weeks out there during the low tide of the season so that we could do that work to buy us 3 years until we know the status of what's going to happen at the Mangrove Park that we looked at earlier. There's a potential to relocate some of those aluminum walkways over to there on top of some new concrete pilings. So we have some long-range plans coming out that kind of fit together in a puzzle to make sure that we're spending the dollars.
So what you're saying is at this point, the fishing piers can be used again?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Jeff, is there enough docking area there? Have we ever thought about expanding the docks?
I've not heard that there isn't from recreation, and in fact, We're going to be taking to a portion of the dock area and placing the kayak launch facility off of a portion of the dock that you see in the photo. But I've not heard, that maybe Wally knows, but do you get complaints about the lack of dock space? We don't. Okay. Other way. Thank you. Palmetto Greens Linear Park. This is a small park at the end of Northeast 18th Avenue that's right next to the C-16 canal and the FEC railroad tracks. We have numerous ADA improvements, pathway. Restroom refurbishment. This restroom is used heavily, and seal coat the parking lot. Pence Park, $16,000. We're going to replace the cans and furnishings. We're going to refurbish and paint the restrooms. The restrooms now that have new sanitary sewer service that Colin referenced. And we're going to try to build a new ADA parking space. There are no parking spaces for this park, but we're going to construct a parking space right next to the restroom that can serve the park and would be accessible into the restrooms as well. Pioneer Canal Park, it's off the C-16 canal, 13th Ave. Here too we have a fishing pier, some minor repairs and some ADA work approaching the pier. Tennis court repairs, basketball and tennis ADA. Believe it or not, your accessible path to these courts have to be accessible per standards. Cans, benches, and grills in this park will be replaced. There's a sand volleyball court that we're going to refurbish. We also have to provide an accessible route to the volleyball court, and restroom refurbishment has been noted in other similar park locations. Sarah Sims Park. All right, this is one of the differences. You have a new capital plan different than what was in the published book. I messed up and didn't include the line item for this park project of $300,000 for fencing. It was pointed out that I goofed, and so we added the $300,000 fence back into this park. Now, this is a park that's had considerable discussion on your level and on the level of the CRA. I'm not privy to a lot of that discussion, but I can tell you what the needs are in the park, and we've talked about them for years. And in fact, a number of those needs we have deferred for probably the last 3 or 4 years, pending the finality of a final plan, so that when we do the improvements, we know what those improvements are with specificity, instead of just simply, we need to fix the park. So we have a project that's about $1.37 or $1.4 million. The city expense is $776,000. That's the sum of all of those elements that we've been carrying in our capital plan in prior years, nothing new. And the CRA now, I understand, is going to contribute $600,000 to this park. That's going to include fencing in some manner, irrigation upgrades, because we do need to upgrade the irrigation there, and we do have reclaimed water available there. Okay. The parking lot we know is in need of repair. We have a pavilion that needs to be replaced from a fire damage a few years ago. A number of ADA upgrades. We do need to do some sodding and landscaping because a lot of the sodding has been destroyed. New restrooms. These are probably the oldest park restrooms in the city. Requests for upgraded park lighting, new pathway construction, not maintenance, and a park identifying feature at MLK and Seacrest. I mentioned all of those items generically because collectively I don't know what they mean. Okay?
You know, Jeff, let me jump in here. You know, it's amazing how, you know, I'm going to go ahead and say it, because Commissioner Rum last week was laughing at it, you know, how you all show such a beautiful picture, and when you go over there, you like say, what the hell happened? I'm just saying, you know, this is one part. I'm just saying, you're not showing the bad part.
I know, but I'm a cup half full guy, and I want to show at least something on every site that looks good. That's me. My fault. I didn't want to take, it's just, the last line there at the bottom, anybody?
Jeff, what do you mean by you don't know what that means collectively?
Well, I'm going to tell you here, because that's the last line. Public input meetings are required to complete the design. We're going to, depending upon what we do, where do I place the restrooms? Exactly where is the fence? How do we want the pathway laid out? I'm the guy that will work with our project managers to build it. But if I don't know what it is, I can't build it. So we're going to have guidance and direction given to us, either via a landscape architect that does preliminary scoping. We don't need a landscape architect to do the full-blown design. I've got staff members that are pretty good at some of these things. So we're not going to have to spend a lot of money on design. We'll have to do some design work if we're building new restrooms, because they're going to have to be permitted through the building department. So those will need to be designed by an architect. But where we want fencing, how we want pathways to work integral to the park, how you envision the park working, is something between recreation staff and the community we're going to have to figure out. This right here, putting it on a slide and putting it into the budget, is the easiest part.
What are we doing? I'm just saying, we have schematics that we go out and show the community, saying this is what it's going to look like, and then we're sitting up here talking about you don't know.
I don't.
Well, then why are we showing the community something, I'm just saying, which is not viable?
Well,
I know you want input, but then you're saying this is the way it's going to look. I'm out here telling them this is the way our park is going to look. Now, we're both sitting there like, we have the same concerns.
Gotta listen, what I'm saying is that we had from 2010 a conceptual plan that was prepared by the CRA. I understand that it's no longer the desire of the CRA and the city to complete that plan as it was laid out, correct?
We need to get together. I'm just
Yes, that was a $6 million master plan that is not going to be, with a mausoleum and so forth.
So it's not
We're
going
doing a much smaller
And I'm sorry that I'm
version of
hammering
improvements.
this, because for us being the ones to build it, I need to know where it's all going.
Yeah, no, we're not going to put city mausoleums over there, not in that cemetery, and I'm just saying, so maybe I need to sit down and look at what, you all are looking at and what the public is looking at, because everybody's going in different directions now.
Well,
And then you're telling
and that's
me
what
that
we're-
sitting up here and I'm out of space now.
I'm going to answer that real quick. A little bit differently than what Jeff's saying. We had the master plan that we presented. You were out there, I was at that meeting, and we got a lot of good feedback in that meeting about what people like and what they didn't like.
Okay.
And I think we're going to take that in. We need to have more of those meetings. We need to bring in a designer and say, okay, you didn't like these things, but we want to put a fence around. What types of fences do you want? That's what Jeff's saying. We need to know what types of fences people like.
Where?
And where they want fence and things. So we will schedule several coming up, and I'm going to work with Mike Simon, the CRA. We're going to work together to schedule several more, so we all get on the same page. So the residents and everybody else are getting what they want in that park to work within the budget. Now, the master plan was $6 million. We have about 1.3, but 1.3 can go a long ways to really making that park nice.
Right.
We just want to spend it on the right thing. So we're going to need your input. We're going to need the neighborhood's input. We're going to need all the citizens' input on what those things look like, and so we'll set those up.
Right. We also said we was going to send out a questionnaire.
Absolutely.
And
CRA's working on
And
that.
the CRA's working on that. Absolutely.
Enlighten me on something. How do we spend $6 million on a plan?
No. That's not the
No,
plan.
that was the
Am I
construction cost estimate. The master plan contemplated the expansion to the cemetery with the construction of a mausoleum building with additional pavilions.
No one knew at that time that no one wanted a mausoleum in that park?
No, at the time, during the
That's
public
what
process,
was
that was
wanted?
what was being contemplated.
Right.
This was years ago. Yeah, CRA did a master plan on it.
I never heard that. I'm sorry, and I'm not trying to say you out where y'all got the mausoleum, not for over in.
We weren't here.
Yeah, it
I know
predates
y'all
me
wasn't
even.
here, when I was here, but I'm just saying, because first of all, and I'm going to go ahead and say it about the cemetery over there, the majority of the individuals who live in District 2 are saying that they don't want to be buried in Sarah Sims Park. Every now and then we get one or two people who said, I want to be buried there. That was not the wish of the public. Now, when we started using the cemetery down on Woolbright. I'm just saying, this is where, our loved ones are buried now. So I don't know why we keep harping on, saying, the cemetery over there. That was just something that happened. It's just like Boynton. It's there, and we have to utilize it. But no, I don't know where this mausoleum came, because nobody never looked at a mausoleum over there. The whole while I'm here, and I've been here like 64 years, and I'm like saying, where did the mausoleum come from?
And we're right there with you. It's no longer being contemplated. It's not something that it sounds like is wanted. I know at some point, I imagine back in the days with where whatever planners were working with the CRA and the public process, they were contemplating, knowing we're running out of space at our main cemetery, to possibly expand that cemetery. So, but at this point, there are no plans to do that.
Right, and Lori,
The original master plan did contemplate it.
Okay, let me finish. I never seen a plan that said mausoleums was going over in Sarah Sims. This is what I'm saying. Where y'all get this plan at? Let me see it.
I might need Mike's help on when the CRA did that master planning process, to where that was, how that was developed. Was it involved in it?
Mike Simon with the CRA. The 2010 master plan is the document that we have within the agency. It was done by REG Architects at the time. Multiple meetings were held. It's been in the 2014 Heart of Boynton plan. It's in the 2016 CRA redevelopment plan. And there's a 30-page plan on how many meetings we had and the public input. That's the drawing that you keep seeing, that design that we show at our meetings is the plan that came out of it. Since then, we've had meetings with the public that those that are attending those meetings are changing their minds, or not. Maybe they didn't have input at the first meetings when some of the layout was discussed or mausoleum was discussed, but the plan that we've been showing the public from May 31st through our last meetings and then at the Park and Recreation Board meetings is the plan that came out of the 2010 charrettes with the community, with the Heart of Boynton community. So again, in 2014, when we did the Heart of Boynton update, we used that plan and there was still support. All of those little details we're talking about now were kind of the details we've been talking about for the last month. What do you want in the park? What types of new elements do you want in the park? And I think all of the meetings that we've been having and the input we've been giving to you as staff has been relaying the public information back to you that the basketball courts they would like to stay, the handball courts would like to stay. We talked about the baseball at Galaxy versus building a baseball diamond there. So all of those things have been continuing to come out in the June and July meetings with the public. These improvements that we've been telling you about as a CRA and been working with the city to describe to you are really taking the kind of the easy elements to improve of that plan, the sod areas, the lighting, the fencing, the pathways, the playground, the restrooms, and trying to improve those on the short term while we have the utility bill that's going out, the survey, that's going out in August. We have the ability to try to get input off of the website. So that kind of information gathering is going to continue on an overall plan while these immediate improvements are taking place, rather than waiting to green the area or to light the area to do some kind of an overall master plan.
Okay, in regards to the mausoleum, you said you went out to the community. I know y'all
they don't want a mausoleum.
Okay.
The public doesn't want a mausoleum.
As long as I'm not losing it, okay.
No. At these meetings in 2017, the public doesn't want a mausoleum.
Okay, as long as I'm not losing it, okay.
Jeff, let me ask you this. We're spending $1.4 million of taxpayer dollars on this particular park, plus the hundreds of thousands of dollars all the other parks you've showed us. And Commissioner Ramos had alluded to, it doesn't look like this. What guarantees are we going to have spending $1.4 million of taxpayers' money that in 5 years that this project's going to continue to look like that? Now, we hear complaints that it's litter strewn, glass broken. I think they had some vandalism down there the other night. We're going to put $1.4 million into this particular park. How are we going to maintain this park and keep that standard up and get our money's worth? That's what I'm concerned about, because we put all these thousands and millions of dollars into these projects, and in 3-4 years, it doesn't look anything like that picture anymore. I think we deserve better. If we can't maintain the parks, then let's not have all these parks. It's impossible right now, and I think you would have to agree with me, that we just don't have the money or the manpower to maintain all the 28 or 29 parks that we're trying to maintain in the proper manner. It's just physically impossible, and you gave us a little bit of the schedule on how they go around once a week and such to maintain these parks. It doesn't work. And I'm just concerned that we spend this kind of money on parks, in which we need parks. I'm a big park guy. But only if we can maintain them to the level that we're putting $1.4 million into. Because I can't guarantee it, but I'd be almost positive that that park is not going to look like that in 3 to 5 years after $1.4 million has been spent on it.
Let me go ahead and jump in. I'm not going to go ahead and say that, Intracoastal Park, the parks that's over in District 2, I'm just saying that we use, they still look like what was given to us. Give the citizens what we asked for, and then let us worry about seeing if it will remain the same. I'm just saying, it seems like when it comes to spending money over in District 2, something that's overdue. This park here is over 20-some years, about 25 years in the banking. I'm just saying, when you all started putting things, you started piecemealing. When the pavilion burnt down, nobody came out and put anything else in. Sure, we can guarantee you, if you build it for us, we'll take care of it, okay? I represent District 2. We don't tap everything we get, and I'm kind of tired of sitting up here, people about how can we guarantee? We can guarantee because, after all, we have a brain and we can think.
Refresh my memory real quick because I'm relatively new up here. Did that pavilion break down or burn down?
It burned down, but it was insured.
What was the cause of that burning?
Arson,
All right.
vandalism.
Okay.
The generic answer is, I think, one that you would expect from me, is that when we build an asset or infrastructure, we maintain it according to the appropriate life cycle. Some parks have different use types that require different maintenance cycles, and they require different infusion of maintenance techniques, whether it be custodial or in-house staff. That's common throughout our city. Some are more costly, some are less costly. That's how we respond. Eventually, as you mentioned, Commissioner, and I think Wally mentioned it yesterday when talking about another park, that at some point, it gets to the point you don't do any maintenance well, you have to ask yourself the question, should we still have the asset? I believe that for the next 9 years now, we're going to have sufficient funds to maintain the basic infrastructure in a reasonable manner at whatever level of service is there at the park. My concern is from year 9 and 10 and on, when the $4.2 million of Surtax funds expire. And that's a separate discussion that we're going to have next year and the year after as to how we're going to plan that. I believe that we as staff can do a good job, both capital and with in-house staff, to maintain the infrastructure as we have today with in-house and with Surtax. Now, are we going to pick up every litter that falls on the ground at 2 in the afternoon? No. We cannot reasonably staff for that.
Thank you. I think we're going to move on to the next park.
Thank you. Senior Center, some minor flooring repairs and some patio and awning repairs on the exterior. Tennis Center, seal coat the parking lot and some ADA improvements as you go up the sidewalks to the main office and the main building there. Some of them don't meet proper slopes. We had in the project prior to this year some upgrades to the landscaping in the median areas out in the parking lot. It's kind of changed a little bit. We're going to kind of redesign it because we know we're going to have another solar panel out there placed by FPL, so it's going to put some more fun into our process. So we're looking forward to that one. At least I am. It'll be kind of cool. Fire station
Jeff,
repairs.
the tennis center, how many people, how many members are actually Boynton residents?
We'll have to get Wally. And he's thinking.
I can see he's thinking.
Wally Majors, Recreation and Parks Director. I believe the number, and I will check right after I leave this seat real quick, I believe it's around 160. That's a educated guess. So if you can give me 10 minutes, I can find out.
How many total members are there that belong to the tennis club?
And we, I believe, have a little over 200 and change permit holders.
So a little over 200 some members, and you believe about half of them, or a little more than half of them, are residents of Boynton Beach?
Yeah, I believe we have, we may have more non-residents than residents that hold permits.
And what kind of revenue does that generate, this tennis club?
Again, I can get the numbers for you. I'd rather not guess, but
Didn't last year or 2 years ago, didn't we take a vote here as a commission to improve the lighting there? We paid some serious money to change the lights at the poles,
Yes, sir.
rusting and all.
Yes, sir. And those were just basically just due to maintenance, wear and tear.
Does this bring in a positive cash flow or a negative cash flow?
Again, none of our facilities generate what we subsidize all of our facilities. This is probably one of the facilities that requires a little less subsidy.
My question is then, if we have more non-residents using this tennis club, why aren't we charging them a fee that would promote that we pay for these new lights and all the upgrades that it takes to take this tennis center? Why aren't we collecting those fees from the non-residents?
Actually, non-residents pay quite a bit more than residents.
But they're still not paying enough to maintain the center.
No, and in fact, the cost would almost get to be prohibitive.
So this center here is a liability to the city. It's a cost factor to the city.
It is a facility that it is subsidized.
Costs us water, electricity to operate it, plus personnel we put. It's not like a passive park of any type.
No, sir. No, sir.
All right.
Commissioner Casello, if I'm not mistaken, all of our parks cost the city money.
I'm talking about we don't have tennis centers on all our parks, Mr.
We do
Mayor.
have tennis courts in some,
Yeah.
and then
Well,
some of them don't have it.
They're
This
not
also
maintained by
provides the-
personnel, though. So let me finish my line of
Okay.
questioning. Thank you, Mayor. So my question is, how do we get this to be revenue equal or neutral? How does that happen?
We would have to increase the fees. There were several years ago where we tried that, and ultimately the commission decided to hold the fees at a lower rate than what staff was recommending. That was several years ago.
Would you agree with me, though, if we have a center like this, a tennis center, and not so much to make a profit on it, but to have it revenue neutral, that where the fees and costs are equal, where it ain't a burden on the city? Because I have a hard time using taxpayers' money to have a tennis center, which is great. I'm not a tennis player, believe me. But it's costing the taxpayers of Boynton Beach to subsidize non-residents to use our tennis center. Am I correct in saying something like that?
And again, that's why when we have non-residents that want to use the facility, they pay quite a bit more. It's the same concept that we have at Oceanfront Park. At Oceanfront Park, if you live in Boynton, it costs you $50 a year to park there. If you don't, it costs you $200 a year. So you could have the same type of conversation with Oceanfront Park, that it's still subsidized. Non-residents are allowed to use it, but if you're a non-resident, you're going to be paying quite a bit more.
All right, and it's my point here is that, you know, with this, every year we go through these budget things and we spend millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars on our parks here and everything like that. And I think at some point that they, you know, the ones that we are generating fees for, or there's a fee to use every day on a daily basis, they have to become revenue neutral. They have to not, you know, just be revenue neutral. I mean, that's just my take on it.
I disagree in the sense that part of the thing of Boynton Beach is that we have businesses here, and that we would want people from other cities coming into our city to use our businesses. And so I'm looking at the fees now. It's $279 for resident, $419 for non-resident. A family is $417 for resident, $626 for non-resident. And so you're saying we have over 100 non-resident annual memberships?
I think, again, that's an educated guess. I can find out the true number in a very quick amount of time.
That's roughly $40,000 to help pay for the park that we all use. It's also attached to barrier-free park, and we're not putting any money into that this year, it seems. So it's kind of, in the sense, trying to get extra money from the non-residents.
Mr. Mayor, this is a specific park that does one thing. It's a tennis center. It's not a park. It's a tennis center.
It's attached to the barrier-free park. And so we don't charge for people from using that either.
Well, it's a park designed for people with disabilities. I would hope not.
Right, and so, there are free tennis places throughout the city. If I'm not mistaken, you can find.
We do have several tennis courts that are available for public use, yes, throughout the
So
city.
that's, this is for the tournaments, and so.
And I believe Amy has the numbers of permit holders that we sell annually, if you'd like to know, at least.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. It's 140 total, and a little less than half are non-residents.
Okay.
Now, wait, the 140 is the total membership?
The total membership, outside of what individuals play daily, would pay daily, those would be for the annual permits.
Do you have the numbers?
They're permit holders, actually.
Do you have the numbers associated with the total revenue as opposed to the total cost of operating the facility?
We can get those shortly. We don't have those right now. I just pulled the...
Because I think, and I'll,
Numbers.
piggyback on what Commissioner Casella said, and this is my district, but, I constantly talk about fiscal responsibility and making sure that we don't misuse or misallocate resources that detract from other services that might be more vital or important. And if this particular facility, and when we see the numbers when they come back to us, it might bear true or it might bear false. If it's costing hundreds of thousands of dollars for what we just found out is like 70 residents of the city and then 70 or so non-residents of the city to utilize, I think that, yeah, it's nice to have a free, or not free, but it's nice to have this tennis center, but I look at it the same way as I look at the golf course. If it can't produce revenue to cover the cost, and in reality, it's not like a regular park where thousands of people might frequent it. They just said 100 and something people. Again, it's my district, and I'm willing to say that if this doesn't make sense financially, and there are alternatives, which are all throughout the city, there are plenty of places you can play tennis, then maybe this is something that needs to be looked at as a non-necessary expenditure, and we need to reallocate those funds. Again, nobody likes to, especially in their own district, say something that is available might need to be axed or taken away, but I have no fear saying that because it's just fiscally irresponsible to say that we might be putting, and I don't know the numbers yet, but whether it's $50,000 or $100,000 or $200,000 a year into this net cost, why are 70,000 people paying for a facility that's utilized by 70 residents of the city of Boynton Beach? It needs to be reviewed just like anything in the government needs to be reviewed over time, because maybe at some point the membership was much higher, maybe at some point the costs were lower, but if it's gotten underwater, then it's worth revisiting at the very least to identify if that's true or not.
What I can tell you is the cost recovery for that facility is actually much better than it was originally, because we did, through attrition, adjusted the staffing levels. But Amy and I, and even before Amy joined us, have investigated opportunities to perhaps look at the way the city of Delray manages their facilities, whereby we bring in a management company and let them run it, and then there would still be some expenses involved with maintaining the property because it is our property, but it is something that I can tell you for the past 3, 4, 5 years, we have looked into other ways to manage that particular facility. And it wasn't that long ago that we eliminated the tennis pro position, which saved us right there about $90,000 from the expenses to maintain that. So through the years, to some degree, we do agree with you, but the level of subsidy isn't quite as high as some of the numbers that were being thrown out there, and it's quite honestly, it's higher than most of our other facilities. But yes, it is true, it is a tennis center. When the economy is good, it's a nice facility to have available to our residents, but again, it is something that through the years we have investigated options.
Wally, how many years is it, or the cycle where we do a cost recovery analysis on all of our facilities, and we continue to review from a policy standpoint what our tolerance levels are as a community from a subsidy standpoint versus revenue neutral standpoint?
Right.
Typically recreation programs, they can be programmed either way. We have some that are revenue neutral, we have others that are not at all. But how often, it's through your strategic planning
right.
that I know we...
On an annual basis, we look at our fees and we compare them to other municipalities and other service providers that may have similar type of activities, so...
Well, we did that process, though, remember when we interviewed, I think maybe a consultant was in, and they actually interviewed with each of the commissioners, talked about all of our parks, and talked about philosophy.
Yeah, and that's fairly common, and again, basically, we look at a pyramid.
Right.
The top of the pyramid are programs that are completely subsidized. Those are our parks, our playgrounds, our pool, because ultimately there's a benefit to those facilities to the entire community. And then, actually, I should say, that's the bottom of the pyramid. At the top of the pyramid are those type of activities that primarily benefit the individual, your jazzercise classes, your self-improvement classes. Those classes recover 100% of their direct costs. The cost of the supplies, the cost of the equipment, and basically that's been our concept for many, many years now. But that can be adjusted as things evolve. So the fees for the tennis center, to some degree, were based on what the level of subsidies that we felt was appropriate at that particular time. If the commission feels that that's something that we have to readdress and reanalyze, we can go back, we can report back to you, and that's, again, the pool is a good example. We used to have some cost recovery through the pool, through fees. That has changed over the past year, whereby right now, the pool is available for public use, similar to a park, similar to a playground. But ultimately, as with all our facilities, all our programs, we can go back, we can analyze those, get some sense, some feedback from you guys in terms of what degree you'd like to have them subsidized. But it's also based on the fact that, to some degree, we've always tried to maintain our service level at a point where people can afford it. And a good example is our summer camps. Those are probably the least expensive in the county.
Wally, let me ask you a question. How long have that tennis center been there?
1982 was the first phase.
Answer my question, thank you.
And I'll finish up by saying, and I'm sure that Commissioner Costello shares the sentiment, we're not being critical or trying to lambaste Parks and Rec or anybody, but at some point in time, like you said, this commission has to start making decisions that are fiscally responsible. And if, again, I've said it before, whether it's this or the golf course, at some point, that threshold of tolerance of subsidization might tip as the financial needs shift over time. So, like I said, I constantly preach up here about fiscal responsibility. People need to pay for things. Just because we're the government and they pay taxes, even though 20% of the people in the city apparently don't pay any taxes because of the way the system's constructed, but people need to pay for amenities that are not basic amenities provided by the government, or they can vote to raise their taxes, or we can raise their taxes, which is not something I'm in favor of, but tough decisions need to be made. We're not a rich city. We don't have money overflowing from the coffers. So this is just one example, again, not chastising or holding it against anybody, but we as a board or commission need to look at this across the city and identify things that may need to be tweaked to improve their fiscal outlook.
And, I was just talking to Wally, and it sounds like, based on the comments we're getting, that it might be time for us to take us through that cycle of analysis again, because at the end of the day, it's the commission's job to set that policy as to what we want to offer as a community in terms of amenities, and do they need to be revenue neutral versus amenities that will be subsidized by the city, and it's pure policy, and then we move accordingly. So I think, you're working on your strategic plan next year, that's something,
Right.
Can we do internally?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Because I remember a consultant last time interviewing everybody, but
Right.
if that's something.
And part of what we
I
do...
think we need to have that discussion with the commission.
And keep in mind, even our
Look at
revenue
everything we
policy
have.
manual, which covers all our fee for all of our programs, is a document that whenever we make changes to that, we bring that to your attention. For example, fairly recently, we adjusted the fees at the pool. We made those changes on that manual. And that way, that gives us the range of fees that we can charge. And that's a whole part of this discussion. Ultimately, if we're looking for greater cost recovery, obviously you're going to have to expect that people are going to be willing to pay a little bit more.
When you set
for
the
what
rates here for our tennis center, where did you get that, where did you do that comparison with?
Well, at the tennis center, we compare it to similar facilities, which in our case, would, for example, would be Wellington has the same type of material that we use for our tennis center, Boca, I believe, Palm Beach Gardens, but Yeah, I can tell you, just like all of our other fees, we are probably at the very low end of the range with almost all of our fees.
And that's been policy, pretty much the policy history of the city, is to try to keep fees down. But if we want to change that, we need to sit back down and talk about
But
it.
every year, we sit up here and go through a budget, and we are
Absolutely right.
scraping for dollars.
Yes.
I mean, it gets to a point where, like Commissioner Katz had mentioned, we've got to, listen, we'd love to have it. Listen, everyone knows I'm an avid golfer, but if the golf course doesn't produce, and then we have to take a look at that. The same with this tennis center. That's all I'm saying.
I'm going to ask the commission if we would mind doing a working lunch. It's 12:30 now, and we'll finish up with the rest of the capital because we're done with the parks.
I am almost done with capital.
Okay, you're going to run through the last two pages?
I can fly through it.
No, don't fly, just go.
Okay.
Miscellaneous fires.
Jeff, if you don't mind, Mayor Amy's been standing here for a while. I think she had something.
I have some numbers that you asked for regarding the tennis center. So last year, the revenue was 160, and the expenses were 241. So it's about 34% subsidized, if that helps. And it's not just the permit fees that we have annually. They have lessons, so that's a percentage of what the pros bring in, and also the daily fees, and then all the other programs that we have. So it's a mixture of the permits and all the other programs that are out there. So it's just not the 140 individuals. Okay.
Since y'all went back to the tennis, Wally, when you all went for accreditation for the Parks and Recs, what did they say about the tennis center?
That's not necessarily something that's considered as a standard per se. So that wasn't something that came as a discussion point as part of accreditation. But again, it's just one of our many facilities that can certainly be part of a discussion.
All right, I'm through with it. Go. Jeff.
Okay.
Go.
Fire stations. We did a very comprehensive assessment of fire stations with Deputy Chief Hoggett. Looked at interior and exterior of every building. You're seeing these improvements next year for 293, kitchen Station 2, kitchen renovation, women restroom repair before the toilet falls off the wall. Station 3, concrete apron expansion. That'll help the turning radius so that we don't knock off windows and overhead doors. Seal coat parking lots. Here at 2, we're going to paint the apparatus bay in Station 3. It's kind of rusty. Community room soffit, security and lighting improvements. Station 5, we're going to pressure wash and seal the exterior walls. If you go farther into the plan, that's anticipation.
Jeff, didn't we just spend, how much we spend on the new roof at Station 5?
It was like $50,000, if I recall.
That's in last year's budget?
That was last year's. It was completed this year. Go ahead, Tom.
How are we doing with the air quality? I'm just saying because we had to close some because the air wasn't right. Okay.
We talked about street sidewalks and those initiatives earlier, so you can bypass this one quickly. Information technology, there's a component of the capital budget. It's been there for a number of years. If anybody has any questions on what those are individually, John, the IT geek's here, so he can answer all of that. All I know is my computer works in my office, so I'm happy. That's general. On one other project, it was kind of citywide, was $226,000. We're going to be working with Eleanor and talking about branding. When you look at all the city park signs, the fire station signs, they're all kind of different. If you look at some of the park signs, they're falling over. We're going to redo the signs, kind of come up with some branding commonalities between everything, and that'll make me very happy to get rid of some old signs. And then the non-surtax, we talked about this project, the 302 fund, I talked about that earlier. It's the old capital plan. There are some dollars in the 302 that are supplementing to add up to the total project costs. As you go forward in the future, I'd look at 302 as your fund for new endeavors and new initiatives. Something that wouldn't be contemplated with surtax that was voted on by the voters. Lastly, when we talk about locations...
Back up. Explain that, why you got golf capital on the bottom of that.
Golf capital is currently listed in the 302 fund. Colin, you may want to comment on that.
Yeah, that's the capital funding that comes from the golf course and their fees. We just listed in 302 because it's money that comes in and we spend it back out. It's the way we track it. And Tim, correct me, that's correct? Pretty close. I think it's pretty close.
All right, go with pretty close. We'll get it later.
Yeah, it's,
Don't beat it to death.
there's a surcharge when you play golf out there. Part of your fee goes to capital improvements.
Okay.
And in the 302 for golf, there's debt listed in there for some of those improvements. Okay, you can go, Tony. And this gives you just a quick overview of where all of these projects were in the city from a map. Colin had me lay the map sideways so it fit the slide. So everybody kind of turn your heads to the right.
Sorry,
that
it
would
didn't
be up
fit.
would be north, but the dots. Yeah. Everybody knows what the one dot is outside the blue line?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
It's the beach.
Oceanfront Park. It's in the town of Ocean Ridge. So that kind of gives you a representation. Now, if I was showing you all of the sidewalk improvements and roadway patching, I'd have about 800 more little itty-bitty dots out there, so I didn't want a whole map that was red. So that kind of does it. Remember, this is 1 year we showed you. Look at the plan. The Surtax projects have been very challenging to put together, but like I said in the front, there's really no difference in our capital planning. The only difference is we got money instead of funny money.
Well, so while we're on the topic of we've got money, and we have all these projects coming down the pipeline, my thing that I'm asking for and what I'm still waiting for from staff is the production of a policy that states that we are going to give priority to local and minority businesses to do these projects, to have wealth being circulated within the community rather than paying out to companies that are based in Miami or Atlanta or other places just because they come in with a lower bid because they have a higher capacity. So what are we doing on that? How's that policy coming along?
Commissioner, I'll answer that. We've got the draft of the policies on my desk right now. It's been reviewed put together by Economic Development. My procurement manager has reviewed it. I went partially through legal with some discussions. I'm now about halfway through trying to figure out how we're going to track it in the system. I think I've got the one method set up to identify by code per vendor, because it's great to put the policy in place. My concern is how we're going to, when you want to report on how it's doing, that I can produce that for you out of our system. So I went into the vendor file, and I think I've isolated a field that I can code. I'm doing some testing right now for report running. So you'll probably see something at the August meeting that I'll bring to you to show you the outline of how it's going to work. And then we've got the language that we'll insert into the bid documents, and then we'll start tracking it from there.
So we also have in language where we're going to piecemeal projects where it's not such a large project, but it's only a certain.
Correct. That's right. What's going to happen is on a department level and on a project basis, some projects lend itself to that and some not quite so much. So based on the project manager and the department head's expertise and knowledge, some of them will be broken apart to do in smaller portions, which will focus with that bid language. It'll help with the what our tolerance level is for the additional cost if there is some for a local preference. The other ones it'll be noted on the bid that it's not being broken apart. It'll go out based on the type of project that it is. And we'll move forward with that hopefully in the next month, and you'll see what that outline is and what that tolerance level is, so the commission can concur that they're okay with that tolerance.
So with all these projects that are proposed, are we going to wait until that policy is in place before we start bidding out these contracts?
These projects are October 1st, so it'll be in place by October 1st. So we'll be in line with that. The policy right now has the language for the formal bid process that goes out on the street. What we're still tweaking a little bit is the smaller, when I say smaller projects, with our procurement policy, anything over $25,000 is a formal bid process. Bids out on the street, specs, they reply by a certain date, sealed, all those things. That's the bid language that we have prepared. The ones under $25,000 are done by written quotes and are handled internally by the departments. That language I'm still tweaking a little bit, but I want to get the bid one out first to get out, that goes into the formal documents. And we'll get that, I'll bring that to you in August for review. And we'll have it in place.
But that's what we're saying, is that in written quotes, we don't want it like clumped together so to go over 25,000. We want it like so
Right.
somebody could bring a written quote that
Right.
John Doe Minority can
Right.
say, I want to bid on this project.
Right.
I just want to, this is what I'll charge you.
Correct.
Okay.
And there's some other pieces that have to be put in place subsequent to that, we'll go over with you when I bring it back.
Thank you.
Just one question real quick. I think you mentioned in there that with the potential of splitting up projects to allow for smaller vendors to have access to it, there would be a threshold of the premium we'd pay, correct?
Correct.
Okay, because that, I mean, it's one thing if it costs 10% more to have a couple local contractors. If it costs 50% more to do a project because of that,
Correct.
So there will be something in there to gauge that.
That's when I referenced the tolerance threshold that we as a city, you as policyholders, and us as managers can accept and is okay with. Most of the policies that we've seen, that we reviewed, and what we've modeled ours after, has a tolerance, and I don't have it in front of me, so I don't want to throw the number out, but there's a percent, and then there's a dollar maximum per bid. And you'll see that when I bring it to you. And if you want to adjust that, you're more than welcome to, depending on your threshold, and we'll go over it then.
Okay. And obviously, since normally when we talk about wealth building, it's usually in the context of the CRA, although now it's become a broader city initiative. Obviously, this type of policy would mean it doesn't matter where you live in Boynton Beach, you are part of this preferred local class. It's not just this area or that area.
Correct.
It's the whole city is weighed equally as a local.
Correct. Local business preference, from my standpoint and from our standpoint as far as management, has been local businesses that have a business tax receipt and a business within the city corporate limits of Boynton Beach.
Okay.
And when I say local, I'm also referencing the fact that we want to keep the money in here. So even if the person is not per se doing business with Boynton Beach, if they're in Delray or Lake Worth, I'm saying I still want that local revenue generator. I'm saying I would prefer to give somebody business who's in Lake Worth, even if they're not in Boynton, maybe somebody who is in Atlanta. That's what I'm saying.
local.
So
Right.
Not just local as in, like, if you don't find anybody in Boynton Beach, that's it.
Right.
It's more of a regional.
Right.
That's what I mean.
There's a couple tiers to it, and we'll discuss that when it comes back. There's some tracking issues with that, and we can ask for information, and then I'll go over it with you and see what we want to do.
Recess for lunch. Meet back at 1 o'clock, 20 minutes?
Yeah.
All right. Next item on the list is the golf course.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Ron Tapper, Golf Course Manager. The screen you see right here is what you're seeing is our renovation project from the start, when they start cutting the greens there on the stripping them. And you see them rototilling and taking out, they probably took about 18 inches of dirt out of each green there going down from the contamination. The picture on the bottom left is the recowering of the sod that goes around the greens. It's about a 3-foot cower. That's all new sod that goes around. And the picture on the bottom right is the driving range that was renovated with a different grass. That's going to be celebration grass. It's a different grass that you see in fairways and all. That's going to be on the tee box. The grass that's going to be on the greens on the bottom left, you don't see that picture there, is Tiff Eagle. And what you don't see right now is actually last week we've already started the first cutting of the greens. It takes about a couple months to grow in. So after 2 weeks of sprigging, they grow up, and then we nurture them with the cut, and they start spreading. And then after that, I'm hoping 1st of September, it could be a week after that, and then everything will be reopened, including the driving range there. Now we can go into the budget.
But before you go there, do you have any openings at the golf course?
Any openings, maintenance?
Job openings?
We have one that's being opened right now, a part-time greenskeeper.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, we're interviewing.
Mr. Casello.
Yeah, I suppose they got a list from...
I've been there before. I'd love to do it again.
Lori, excuse me, the list that you supposed to have got me yesterday, did I get it? I'm just saying with the positions.
I did hand it up.
You did?
Yeah,
I got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you need another copy.
I don't need another one. All right. Go.
This is our administration and maintenance budget. 3.45% increase on our administrative side, and 22% decrease on the maintenance side, and that's basically due from the $300,000 that's not in there from the loan that we took for the greens. Of course, administration, the increase there, what you see is for equipment. The 14,000 equipment increase basically is when we're going out, our golf carts are going to be 4 years old in November, and the lease is over, which will be, the golf course takes ownership of the carts, and we are in the process of looking at new carts right now. And in that process, we're looking to add 7 vehicles, which are 6 of them would be maintenance vehicles they drive around the golf course, and 1 bag cart for the guys who pick up the bags around the front, so 7 utility vehicles, which are, all their vehicles are probably about 15 years, and we need to get them new vehicles and get them into the lease, our annual lease that we have, and that way every 4 years we won't eliminate that problem, then they'll have new vehicles. The $6,000 ball dispenser there, that's an upgrade to, we have 2 machines out there that customers hit for range balls, and the 1 machine we want to put, it's a debit card or a credit card payment in, so they don't even have to go inside the shop. It's a process of elimination of tokens, which cost us a lot of money to purchase, so to make it more customer friendly, by doing that, it'll probably be a year or 2, then we'll make up the difference of that money in that and make it more customer friendly. The reduction in the maintenance there is basically for $300,000, which was the decrease this year and for next year. And we will be replacing existing equipment, purchasing some new types of equipment. The $14,000 is for fumigation of our fairways and affected areas. That's from bugs that go in under and eat at the roots that are affected there, where you see no grass in certain areas. That's from the insects that go under the ground, and it's a company that does it. We don't do that. That's a company. We treat that now individually that we do that, but it's better if you can get a company to come in. You have to shut down that day, and it's a much better.
How often is that done for $14,000?
Some places do it twice a year, basically once a year, but you have to time it just right when the insects are really at their attacking.
How many times we do it? Once a year, twice a year?
We did it once last year, didn't do it this year.
All right.
We're doing individual spots. We don't have enough to coverage the whole course.
Okay.
The 14,000 there is basically covers all your 18 holes. And then the 32,000 is a reduction in cost from our full-time positions, and we do have 11 total FTEs, so we didn't lose anybody as far as, I mean, we lost some positions, but we converted them into part-time positions, so we do have the help there. And most of the priority of the jobs that we need to get done are done from 6 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock, and that's when the part-timers basically would be gone. That's the priority of a golf course. This is going to be the big change that's going to help us with revenue. The golf course, we've already started a little bit of this with your approval here. That's going to be a new price structure that's going to be changing coming up in November of this year. And what we're doing, this is under our Parks and Rec fees, and have a price structure here where we're not going to have our hands tied. So when you see the shoulder months, we're actually changing our, I know the city's fiscal year is October 1st. The golf course is going to November 1st as our membership date, as far as going from November 1st through October 31st, because the summer months go through October. So we always went with October 1st, but starting with the summer month going into a seasonal month, we rather have, like the membership courses, like the private, their memberships start November 1st. So our calendar year is going to be starting November 1st for us. What you see there, the price range, though, what that does for us is it gives us flexibility to open up areas on our tee times where we notice, staff has noticed, where we can't fill times. And what that's big for us is from 7 o'clock in the morning when the golf course opens to roughly 12 o'clock is prime time rates. So we notice certain areas that have to be filled with times. And to stay competitive, we have to be able to move rates around. To give you an idea, like 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the morning, tough time for us, especially during season when Park Vista High School is going and blocks our driveway and stuff like that. It's tough to get customers in. So we do know if we can put, without going back and forth to the city manager or for direction, that we can move our rates around a little bit. We can generate more people filling tea times.
Stop. Park Vista blocks our driveway. That's from the main street coming in, or do they block it?
They block it in the morning when schools goes from 7 on the jog road, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So what that does is a customer might have a 7 o'clock tea time, can't get in there unless they're in there by 6:45.
Have anybody contacted the school board about that, or were y'all trying to do anything about it?
We've been fighting that with the police. There's a substation right there. That's been ongoing for years, and we just try to get people there 30 minutes ahead of time. If they get there after 7:15, 7:20, it eases up. But from 6:45 in the morning till 7:20, it's a problem. As far as the membership rates, we are changing our whole total priorities, how we're going to do that this year. What we're looking to do is, we had in the past Links Club cards, which was like a $65 card. It gives you discount rates throughout the year. And then we had annual permit holders, which charge us like $725 a year, and they pay a card fee. And there's only 69 permit holders, which was dropping every year. We had over 600 club card holders. So the problem is, people have cards to all the courses. Everybody sells a card. So we're looking with staff. We see where the priorities are. Most of the businesses, most of your revenue is done through daily fee. So we know where the revenue comes in, but you got to be competitive. So daily fee, that's somebody who just walks in off the street. And our street prices are going to be very competitive this year. We're going to be more affordable. So if you just walk in the street, don't have any card that belongs to the Links, we're going to be within $1 or $2 of what our club card rate was last year. So you don't even have to go in your pocket to pay within $1 or $2. You're going to be very affordable to come into the Links to play. What we noticed at the Links in the last year and a half, by watching our times, is if you look at our budget totals, and I know you have, and you see we're off for 400 to 600 hours in a day during the season, you say, wow, it sounds like a lot. And to us, that's what this project's about, because the greens bring in revenues. And
what's that noise?
Is someone's phone?
That is a loud vibrating phone. It won't stop.
Yes.
Let me ask a question. I remember years ago when the Links first started, because I was around then, and the membership, I'm just saying, we had to set parameters saying who could and could not be a member there. I'm just saying, and now now nobody's out there is what you're almost trying to tell me, and I'm just saying, what happened?
There's, between all the courses, now there's no, you're looking, I was there in 1984 when the golf course opened. They were standing in line out to the gates.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, there was no county courses at that time. It was just us, Cypress Creek, and that's it. There was no Winston Trail or anything at that time. So supply and demand at that time. Yes.
Okay.
So now, there's around us right now, we have 6 public golf courses within 5 miles. 6.
Thank you.
So we have to be more affordable. But getting back to what I said about the 500-600 hours there, we noticed that 3 or 4 tee times per day, 3 or 4 tee times, which is like every 7 minutes. If we filled them 3 times, we are over budget. We're making more. Sounds like a lot. That's 12 people. And so first thing we asked staff is, by doing the green project, do you think we bring in 12 more daily fees? And everyone said yes. It wasn't even a hesitation. So that's how big this project is. Greens bring in revenue. And I've been there 17 years now back. This is the 3rd time. So every 10 years is basically when you need to do greens. It's a 10-year hit. And that's what that is. But changing the membership, we're doing away with the annual permit holder who pays the card fee. But what we're doing is to supplement them is to come up with a premium membership. So if somebody wants to pay the $2,500, or it's going to be, we're looking at $2,700 for November to April, and that's when we have to make the revenue. November to April is when you make the revenue in our business. And if they want to play, then that covers all their cart and greens fees. And we will give them 3 payments to pay that. It's not like we're asking for the money all up front come November 1st. They'll have 3 payments to make that, but that covers. They have to play, if they play 3 times a week, they're going to be ahead of time. If they play twice a week or less, the $199 card that we're going to be offering is going to give them 20% off the cart and greens fees all year round.
So to play golf is 6 months, you said $2,700.
If somebody wants to pay $2,700 between November and April and pay $2,700, that's it, they're done. They can play as much as they want. They don't have to pay anything else.
I'm good. I see why I don't play golf. Okay, go ahead.
And these fees are going to be effective November 1st. And we're looking to get some of them. As far as the card holders, the 600 card club, over 600 club card people, we're looking to do like 300 to 350 of the 199. We're looking for people that are loyal to the golf course. They're going to be playing 2-3 times a week. That's what we're looking for. And then the ones who don't, we're looking that it's going to be affordable enough that if you just walk in off the street, we're going to be within $1 or $2 of that, where that club card rate was last year. It's not going to, we noticed that we adjust our figures this year, it wasn't a problem. Now we're going to give them a better product, and that's why we're looking to increase rounds. And on the next slide, you'll see. Our average rounds are over, not counting this year because we're on the renovations now, but our average rounds historically are 44,000 rounds per year on the championship course. Staff and I are very confident. We're looking at 11% increase to 49,000 rounds on the championship course this year. So combine that with the family course, which does about 16,000 rounds, you're looking at 65,000 rounds for the golf course, which will bring us more revenue. The driving range historically does 58,000. We're looking at about 60,000 with our upgrade to do what we're doing there. The driving range just takes a beating. The grass that's being put out there now on the driving range is called Celebrations, a different kind of grass. You'll see on fairways of a lot of modern the courses who are regrassed. It's a more durable grass. We have enlarged the driving range, so it's going to be more hitting areas, and it's going to be it should be more revenue-driven, consistent. Yes.
Ron, on your fees, can you go back to that slide?
I knew that was coming.
When you set these fees, these parameters, did you check around with other courses?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And you know Winston Trails has a program out there, an 18-month program, but I think it's $399.9. How does that compare? If I was to play Link, if I was to do this, I was both a permit holder and a card holder certain different times out there. So it now becomes a Link's loyalty membership. That would be a card holder,
yes,
correct?
That's a $199 card.
Right. That's a $199 card.
Right.
So when I bring that into the Links, what would it cost me for a round of golf?
Depending on the time of day you play, because the time
Let's say I play at
changes.
10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, so if it's $50 in the morning to play golf, you're going to get 20% off that. You're going to be $40.
So $40.
The difference here is the county generally has a card, and they'll give you 9.5 months at 20%, but during the season, between the middle of December through March, they're 10%. We're 20% all year.
Plus they give you a free round of golf with that.
Well, there'll be benefits with this, but we have to sell cards before you can do anything.
Okay. So if I wanted a season membership, that'd be good from November to April, it would cost me...
You talking about the premium one?
This premium one, correct.
The premium one is for...
Season.
The premium one is for club, like the people who were permits were asking me, what can you do for me? Because we're doing away with the permit.
Permit.
Because what we're doing very basically is we're doing away with the card fee. Because we had...
All right, so when I was a permit holder, when I had the permit, I was paying $750 a year for that permit card.
Yes.
I would come in and I would pay...
$24 card fee.
$24 card fee. So you're doing all away with that?
Yes.
That goes away. So now I come in with that same card.
Which one? The premium one? The premium card, you won't be paying any card or green fee.
Okay.
You're paid up. You're done. And we're going to give you 3 payments to make that. So when some of the people ask me inside, some of the MGA members, do you have to pay this in once? No. We're going to give you 3 months payments to make that. Now, you have to understand, some of these permit holders that we had before, and they've been dropping every year, so we can't count on the permits. And what happened with the permits, out of the 69 that we have left, there's only about 20 that are here year-round.
Obviously, I know a lot of the people who play out there, and I think that this is not going to go as smooth as a transition into these new fees as one might think. You're going to get, you're talking about a $750 permit card that's gone away, and a lot of people use that, and plus the player's card that was used a lot. And I think you might have some issues with these fees, and I'm not saying they're not fair, but I'm just saying from the old school, a lot of the guys who play out there have played out there for years. They've been loyal members, and I'm just afraid that it's not going to go as smooth as one might think.
I can only say I've been looking for years, and the permits have been going down. There's only 20 that are here year-round, estimate 20 to 22 year-round. We do more. We have to cater more to daily fees, people walking in off the street, like Mr. Katz talking about succeeding here. So we know where the percentages are, where we have to go to. So whether you went in your pocket or not, if somebody just walked in there, they're going to be paying, reasonable within our club card rate, what it was last year already without buying. If you play 20 times during the season, in the prime time that you're talking about, you've already paid for anything after is 20% you're saving on your card.
The other problem or an issue with the links, it's distance off the main road. And if you don't know where it is, it's pretty hard to find. You could go by it a couple of times, back and forth. There's a parcel of land out there that's been for sale like forever and a day. And I don't know if it's even feasible financially or otherwise, if it's even possible. But if we could incorporate that in the opening of the course itself, I think it'd be a big invite for people, for drive-through traffic, and say, there it is, off the street traffic coming in. But right now, it's a long drive into that, and if you not familiar with it, you'd pass it a couple of times before finding it.
That's I don't know why that's not working, so I'll grab this one. That's a real challenge out there, because I know where it is, and I go out there quite often,
Exactly.
and I pass it by every once in a while, That's an idea that we're looking at. We're also going to be working with the county. I think there may be a possibility of putting a sign in the median, too, to try to help so you can see it coming in. The problem is you got that hedge that just blocks the sign. You can't see it when you come from the south. So, yeah, those are challenges we have to address. Again, remember, we're trying to go back. The golf course needs to make money. That's the purpose of it, and you make money by bringing golfers in, bringing up the rounds. So, yeah, everything we can do is looking at property, looking at where we can put signs. The events we do out there brings people in. I think that the Concert in the Green was very successful. We're going to do it again. We're going to do it bigger, more people out there. So I think all of these help drive people to the golf course to pay. And then these ranges, I want to go back to the ranges. You're right, there are going to be some people that aren't going to be happy. But I think if they look at the value, there's actually, the way Ron set this up, there's more value in the new system than there was in the old. And we have the ranges, so if we start to have a little bit of an issue, we can adjust it a little bit to make sure we're getting those rounds played, because that's the key, is get the rounds played.
I think the important thing here is first impressions are everything, especially somebody that plays a lot of golf, okay? Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to have like one bite at the apple here when we open this thing back up to show that we are a premier golf course at a decent price, fair price. And I think that's going to be so important. Obviously, I spent a lot of time in the golfing circles and stuff, and the talk is that the Links has one of the best layouts in South Florida. It's loved, and it was #1 public course there in Golf Magazine some years back. I can see it going back to that level again, and I think that's important. So hopefully, and we all do here, and Ron, you've made some tough promises to us here, and I believe in you, and I think that if anybody between you and Colin, and with us helping here, that we get one shot at this to get it right and bring it back to the levels where the golf course made money in the past. I think it was for whatever reasons, maybe mismanaged a little bit on how the funds were spent or not spent over the years, where the maintenance should have been done and kept up on a regular schedule like you have it now, and it wasn't, and those reserves were depleted for costs. So hopefully, it's, it's like a new child now, and we really got to get this thing up and running and do it right the first time.
I need to ask a question. What are you all doing about the restaurant out there and about the, what y'all call the pro shop or whatever shop that is out there?
Well, the clubhouse, I mean, I saw it in your CIP, for renovation, but right now, I mean, I'm very happy with our lease, and gentlemen, he's pays on time.
He's also doing the beach also, right? He also has the lease at the beach. So.
Yes. I mean, right now, everybody's taking a hit at the golf course because, renovation, but I'm hopefully, I go to a lot of networking with other pros and general managers from different courses from North Florida to South Florida, all the way across, and I'm waiting. You're sitting across from me, but I can't wait for September. Because I can't wait when give or take September 1st is what I'm hoping, but could be a week after that because we're not going to open. We don't want to ruin our project, but everybody's telling me you're going to flip a switch, and I'm waiting.
Our goal is having a waiting line out front. That's the goal. And so we are going to have that big opening when we have these new greens and really hit it hard and have that good first impression for people coming out. Okay. And I think we will.
How are we going to market this? Because in the past, the marketing's been lousy.
Every way we can. We're going to use every tool we have and figure out a way to get out. And that includes, again, doing these events where we bring in non-golfers so they know it's there. So they tell their golfing friends, hey, why don't you go play there? So we're going to try to use every single tool we have in marketing when September comes around. As soon as he's ready to tell me the greens are open, we're going to hit it hard. We don't want to do it too soon because we don't want people going out there with temporary greens. But as soon as he tells me the greens are open, we're going to hit every single media source that we have with saying the greens are open, come play.
How about some kind of marketing like, soon to open or see you in September?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's get that started. It's never too early to start something like that, I wouldn't think.
We've got some ideas. You'll see them coming. We've got some ideas we've got some new ideas on how to market too. So.
But I'm just saying, Colin, I hear what you're saying, but this is like he's talking about September, we're like July,
right.
August. I'm just saying, it's not that many days. I'm just saying this is what you all said to us, across from us, and tell us we got good ideas, and you all just wait, and hell, we wait, and when it's over with, we're still waiting. What did y'all do?
Right. No, now is the time. As soon as Ron says second week of September he's going to open, then we're going to start marketing. I want to make sure, because we do not want to have a false trigger on this one. So as soon as we're ready, we're going to start marketing and try to get it out to everybody, and not just golfers, but non-golfers too, so they know about it and they know the name. And that's the key, is that we want to be name recognized as a place to go. And then when you get there, you can find it and you don't drive past it. So.
And on that, first thing's going to come, we have an email we're going to send out to 5,000 people. We'll put it in our Facebook page. It's going to be on our sign right on the front entrance. And if I had to change one thing as far as signage that does the biggest thing for us that we've all noticed for the golf course, if I had to put my marbles in one place for advertising, it would be front entrance signage. That little sign out there does more for us. That was a $300 sign. But that little sign out front, new greens coming or this, there's more people that drive up and down Jog Road that will see that, and that's the biggest advertising that we have.
Any other further questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ron. Good job.
All right, Mayor and Commission, that concludes the golf course. What we have left now are what we consider the smaller funds. So what you have up on the screen, some of these we went over already through Public Works, so I just wanted to throw them up on the screen to refresh your memory. If you have any questions, we can certainly answer them. So the first three, fleet maintenance, Jeff discussed. This is the proposed budget, the $8.2 million. This is the current year budget, 6.1. That's the vehicles where we service the city vehicles and also purchase the vehicles based on the funding schedule that Public Works has put together over the years. Warehouse is where we buy the products, control most of the products, and then distribute them out to the departments based on request. Self-insurance, which we discussed a little bit before, about the allocation of where that's the premiums on the insurance policies plus the claims on the workers' comp and the liability. The special revenue funds are the smaller funds. Traffic safety was budgeted in the current year. It's not budgeted in the upcoming year. That's the red light camera program that is no more. Local option gas tax is funds we received from the state. It's 1.2 million this year, 1.3 in the upcoming year. Those funds are transferred back to either the general fund or the 302, the general capital. The amount that's transferred to the general capital, Fund 302, is used for sidewalk repairs and road work, paving and striping, and bridge repairs. Public art is where we house our public art program. 250 this year, it's 237 for the upcoming year. Recreation program, Wally touched on that. That's his revenue fund, where it's 873 this year, it's 768. That's the classes in the Civic Center and the facilities that he mentioned. Community improvements, 234 to 238. That's where we house Octavia Sherrard, who runs the CDBG program in the SHIP, and her staff. That's funded through the administrative fee from CDBG grant and the SHIP grant. Cemetery, 354, this year's 338. That decline, remember, is because we had a consultant in the current year for the replatting of the cemetery, and that's not in the upcoming year.
Stop. How much did we get on the SHIP program for this year?
SHIP was, she's not here. I'm not sure the allocation. I'd have to get back with you on that. Yeah, I'm not sure the exact dollar amount on it. I know the CDBG was 468 or 476 this year, and I think that's about what we're projecting for next year. The SHIP part, I'm not sure. That varies. That's real sporadic up and down.
All right.
Yeah, if you got it.
It's 343, it's $343,042.
343,042, and on the SHIP program, a percentage of that is considered for administration, which comes into the community improvements. So on the SHIP, it's either a 5% or 10% of the allocation. CDBG is 20% of the allocation.
So that's how we got the 238?
Yes.
Because I thought it was more, okay.
Yep.
Percentage-wise, okay.
Cemetery. These are the capital improvement funds that you've already discussed. The debt service fund was 9.4 this year. It's 9.5 next year. That's where the public service tax funds come into that fund. We pay the debt service that we have on the outstanding public service tax bonds that the city has, and the remainder of that is transferred back into the general fund, which on that slide for this upcoming year is $6.5 million, I think, or $6,050,000. I'd have to check. So that totals your 202. The front page was general fund. So those are all your smaller funds. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer. If not, that concludes all the funds that you're going to be budgeting for in September. And with that, if you want to, on our schedule, Mayor, I think you have public comment section next.
Correct. So let's open it up to public comment. Please limit it to 3 minutes. Jim, you got the clock working?
I got it.
Please let us know when 3 minutes is up.
Cindy Falco Di Corrado, 316 Northwest First Avenue. As I was listening to the golf course, we did go to an event out there, and I must say we passed it once, and then as we were driving down the long way, we're like, where are we going? So in order for that to be, I think, as you're working and going forward to make the greens and to do all this wonderful stuff, it was great to have a venue out there, because when there was a venue out there, I'm like, oh, oh, this is really a nice place. So if we did more venues out that way, I think the public and the communities that come from east over to the west and vice versa and from all over can actually see what amenities are there and what it is. And I heard there's a clubhouse there as well. Do they rent it out for different functions, or is that just in-house for the golfers? I don't even know if there's a clubhouse there. You don't rent it out? I mean, it's
Yeah,
just
not
another-
right now.
Okay, I'm saying as it gets...
Yeah, not right now, we don't. There
Right.
could be a potential in the future.
That's, for marketing, that would be great, because people like to get married on the greens. I do weddings, parties, and events, so that's also a great venue for that, as well as concerts, as well as when you do your golfing tournaments. Because, like I said, I never even knew about it, and we passed it by, and it was really a long, winding road.
Yes, it is.
But if that's the idea, we're going to keep the golf course. That's all I wanted to say, and again, it was just a great venue to have music out there in the open venue, and I just wanted to appreciate you guys for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
As to knock some off my list with other people. Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. I've got several suggestions as well as one or two questions. First, I think we need to be increasing developer fees for all projects over $1 million. We need to be coming in, bringing money in, so that's an easy way to do it. These people are rich, so let's take from the rich and give to the poor, which is us. I don't know what to say about the Narcan. I was telling our two officers over here last night afterwards, we went to McDonald's and got to watch someone OD in McDonald's. And got to see 6 firemen and paramedics and 1 police officer come out last night. That was fun at McDonald's at 10 o'clock at night. So, yay, but I hope you're able to start recovering costs some way. It seems like there's got to be a way to get some money off of this.
I think you meant to use a different word than fun, right, Susan?
Yeah, it was sad, and the worst part is the McDonald's people have seen this so often they weren't even fazed. That it was, because Cindy was there too, it was, no part of that was good. We need to increase our fees we charge to other cities for utilities. It seems like, they should be paying more. My understanding is that some of the areas in Boynton or some of the fees that other cities are paying are less than what we, the residents, are paying. So I hope that's not true. All the city and CRA properties that are being given away for development, maybe we should be charging a flat fee or some kind of percentage fee based on what we actually paid for the property. For example, that $900,000 piece of property, maybe we should be charging a flat 1% of what we paid to recoup some of the money, 10%, whatever you want to do. I saw that you guys are doing active shooter training for all city employees. What about all the board members? You have lots of boards. We have members of the public at the boards. It would be nice if we knew that too. Why did we get rid of the Assistant Director of Public Works? Why was that job eliminated? My understanding is Jeff will be retiring at some point in his lifetime, and isn't this the proper training ground to take over Jeff's job? And Jeff wears many hats, and I would think we'd want someone to be as well-trained as possible. We have 2 new grounds crew coming out, according to Jeff, to do TLC. Are the medians on this list? I sent a few of you a new study that came out from the American Medical Association about LED lights. Warm white lights are less disruptive to your circadian rhythms and do not cause the harmful side effects that cool white lights do. So as we are converting to LED, that's something to think about. I heard about a landfill that's about to tap out soon, or have we thought about converting that to a solar farm? Let's see. Normally we get some kind of breakdown by department for the public over there on the paperwork. We didn't get that this year. I mean, I saw the screens up there, but we didn't actually get the piece of paper in our hand, just like with this last one for the golf course, solid waste, fleet risk, other. I thought when we got our water, our reclaimed water was cleaned approximately 23 times, which actually made it cleaner than the regular tap water we drink. So is that wrong, or is that from some other city I read that about?
Say that again.
The reclaimed water, I had read somewhere that it was being cleaned like 23 times and it was actually cleaner than the regular tap water we drink.
It's not cleaner than, well, it's not cleaner than the tap water because the tap water has other chemicals added to it to make it taste better. So we don't add all of those, but it is, it's disinfected to the point and cleaned to the point where it can be drunk. And there's places all over the country that are drinking reuse water.
Yeah.
It's going out of the wastewater plant and into a water plant, treated, and then back into the pipes. We do not do that here. But I don't want to get that right. We do not do that here.
Isn't Lantana one of those cities?
No,
that
not
does
in Florida. Nowhere in Florida is doing it. These are usually out west where water is a much more scarce commodity.
Okay. No, because you made it sound like if people are using it for their grass, oh my gosh, they better
No.
be careful not to drink it or let their dog have it.
It's recommended that you don't drink it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you're going to get hurt if you drink it.
Yeah, like
that's the recommendation.
WD-40 is nothing bad in it, but you don't want to drink it. And my last thing is looking at Betty Thomas Park, since that's the park down the street from me. Wally has been great. I've been going to Parks and Recs, and they are keeping the lights on longer for the kids playing basketball. The big issue is the drug dealer problem, and I would ask that we look at getting many more cameras and many more lights for a lot of these parks, especially in areas that are drug prone, so we can deal with our drug dealer problem, which means we can avoid the problems we had at McDonald's last night at 10 o'clock. And thank you very much.
Hey everybody, Urban Sine, 223 Northeast 12th Avenue. One question I wanted to ask, well, a couple questions. One was regarding all the projects and some of the stuff that's going to be doing, sodding, resurfacing, all this stuff. What would we do as far as training for people to be prepared for these type of endeavors, whether it's painting, whether it's sodding, any of this stuff, any type of ideas around some type of training for folks in Boynton Beach to be able to handle some of these things, or some programs put together for that to prepare or anything?
Are you asking about training for the jobs to do this type of work?
Yes.
Part of our building of the community. So I don't know if we are doing something, but within the city, but the CRA, part of the TIF package that we had with the new developer was that they would work with the Boynton Beach Community High School and South Tech. So if people are looking for training, I would go to the Palm Beach County Adult Education Services, and we are working with them to hire and build community wealth.
So Palm Beach County Adult Education?
Yes.
Adult Education what? What was that?
Adult Education Services.
Services, okay. All right, also. Now, also just for my own education, so with the utilities district in the city, how does that relationship work? Is the utilities district its own entity and then works with the city? How does that work exactly?
It's a fund.
The utilities district is a fund?
No, the utilities... is a fund. The district is outside of the city limits of Boynton Beach. It goes all the way west to Military Trail, goes north to Hypoluxo, and it encompasses other municipalities, just like our fire district is other municipalities as well. So what we are doing within the city is maintaining the utility fund so that it manages all the areas that it is supposed to manage.
Okay, through the utilities district? Like they'll do that?
No. There is no governing body for the utilities district.
Okay.
There's only the city governing body.
Utilities district, is that private?
It is public because it's part of the city.
Okay, so it's not.
So we are the govening body of the utilities district.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. To that, I was just doing some research and just some things some folks were talking about. When we're talking about being able to fund some of these utilities projects and some of these things, how does the funding happen now? Are these like to fund some of these projects? Are these like loans that are taken out based on the tax revenue of the area? And like how do these funds currently come into existence when it comes to utilities?
That would be Colin's answer.
The utility funds are generated by utility customers paying their bills. So they pay their bills, it goes into account, and then we do projects out of those accounts.
Gotcha.
When we do capacity projects, we do borrow money, and then the new customers pay that back through their capacity fees when they pay capacity fees.
Gotcha.
But it's all within that utility fund.
Now the reason I was bringing that up because like I said, through the research that some of the folks I've been working with, we were having conversations about, are you guys familiar with a 6320 model on funding these type? Okay, so basically what I understand, y'all could tell me anything about this, is that there are ways to where as certain I guess, fees, maybe a storm and water fee or whatever these bills are, that there's a way the community can actually claim some of these increases on their taxes and actually be at the driver's seat on some of this infrastructure funding, so that way the people can actually get something back from it, and be a partner in creating these funds and be at the table of how these funds are allocated and how these projects are funded. So that way to land this plane where the city can, actually the people, the residents, the people who live here can actually get almost like a rebate. They're actually invested in it through, instead of these increases just being an increase that they're paying back on some loan that they may not have been in on, they can actually take these increases, put it on their taxes, and actually have a benefit that way. Does that make sense to you guys, or am I talking crazy? Have you never heard anything about this?
I'm not as familiar with that.
Okay.
I do know that if you're a citizen in the city limits of Boynton Beach, there is a dividend paid out of the utilities back to the city general fund, general government, to pay for general government thing. That's our general government transfer.
Yeah.
And right now it's set at 7.5% of gross revenues. So whatever the gross revenues is, 7.5% come back into the general government to use for general government funding, which is the budget, the general government part of the fund.
I've heard of models as like a P3 model where it's a public partnership.
That's a different model.
Okay.
We're not. This is since the utility is a government department, a city department.
Yeah.
It's not set up to take advantage of those. Those are more for authority-based or independent special districts type utilities, which there isn't one here.
So there's no way that we can have a model where the city can actually participate in getting some type of rebate back on what they're already paying for?
So the 7.5% is the rebate.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
So the gross revenue from the utility fund is the 7.5% goes back into the city. So if that didn't go back into the city, we would either raise taxes or decrease services in order to have that windfall, or to cover up that windfall. My question is that 7.5% the maximum allowed under law?
No, it's a policy decision set by you as the governing board of how much you want, but it does affect the rates. What we do is when we look at borrowing, that's a great question. I'm going to try to spin very short, but when you look at borrowing, you get, Tim's going to answer this better than I do, but you get rated by the rating agencies on your borrowing. That's what sets your interest rates. If you go too high on that transfer, your valuation from those rating agencies goes down. The optimum point based on looking at utilities in the United States is about 7.5%. They're very happy with that. You get above 10, they get very unhappy and they start ranking you out, which means you pay a lot more interest. So we pick that number, but that is a policy number. That's not a number by law. That's a policy number.
I guess we can review that in the future regarding when the next bond payment or bond is over.
Absolutely. When you look at each year and you look at the utility rating, you could set that whatever you choose to set at. I mean, we would recommend to you that we wouldn't want to go too high because, again, remember, you don't want to affect your overall rating of your utility. Right. But absolutely, that's something it's one of the factors that go into that rate calculation, is that factor. So it's just a matter of policy decision each year.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
that's 7 minutes.
I appreciate you.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no more public comments. Next item is adoption of proposed millage rate resolution.
So now, Mayor, a couple things. You've got two actions that we need for you to address. And then there's a couple things I'd like to get some consensus because they're going to affect things that will be coming to you as a commission in August. One is the option of raising the monthly garbage fee $1, because that's done by ordinance, so Jeff will need to bring that to you August 1st and the second reading August 15th in order to be in place. And notices can go out September 1st, so it can go into effect October 1st. So I'd like to see if I can get a consensus if that's something for him to go ahead and draft and bring to you. And that's part of the rate structure that's in this proposed budget. The second thing is Colin alluded to earlier, that he's looking at coming to you in August to talk about the rates for the utility taking them out of ordinance form, which will again take 2 readings to take that out of the ordinance form, which is August 1st and 15th, put a resolution in place for the rates for the upcoming year, which we need to do in August, so in September we can notify the customers. Those are just 2 consensus items I'd like to see.
All right.
What you think?
So, Vice Mayor, would you like to begin?
No.
All right, well, we need an answer.
I will go ahead and begin. Okay, first of all, I'm not in favor of this budget. That's number one. Second of all, I'm not in favor of raising solid waste, and I'm not in favor of the $20 for the fire assessment. Thank you.
Commissioner Romulus, would you like to be next?
All right, so I will echo Commissioner McCrae's comments. I don't like these numbers, but that doesn't mean that I can't accept them because of the fact that I know where we're going with the funds within this city. We have a lot of problems financially in terms of what, and Commissioner Casello and along with Commissioner Katz alluded to this in terms of finding different places that we can cut revenue or see how we can prevent loss of income. And so, when we propose these certain raises, I hate having to be the one to say yes because I can't stand doing it. But when you look at the future and the onset of what's going to be happening to our budget here in the city within the next couple of years because of what's been proposed in legislation up in Tallahassee, all the different things that are coming down the pipeline that are going to be affecting us negatively when we're talking pension talks, when we're doing all these things and we want to get them done and we want to fix the revenue for our city, we can't just leave things as they are. So again, I give Colin flack because of the inflation with the water. I mention all these things because I don't like them and I want to find other ways that we can do them. But if we have turned every single stone, if we have gone through every single line item and this is the way that we have to do it, I'm willing to swallow that pill at this point in time because I know what it does is it protects us and it shores up our services for our residents, which is what we promise to give them in the future. We promise to give them garbage that gets picked up on the day that it's supposed to be picked up. We promise to give them adequate water and potable water that's drinkable and that's safe for their kids, for their families, for their pets. And we promise to give them adequate fire service, adequate police service. We promise to do these things, and it costs money to do these things. And again, I hate being the person to have to say we have to raise prices again because that's what is necessary. But in the situation that we're in, that's what we basically have to do. So when you look at our budget outlay, about 77% of it goes to personnel prices alone. Those personnel, those employees that we have on board, they're the people that make this city run. So I'm okay with giving the wages that we give to them because without them, we have no city. So we at least start there, and then we work with the rest of the 23% that's left over to make the other things in the city to keep them running. So again, I ditto and I second what Commissioner McCrae is saying in terms of I don't like these numbers, I don't like where we're going with it, but I differ in terms of I understand why we have to do it, and I look at the future onset of what's going to be happening with our budget and with the city and the country and the state, everywhere, every single place, from the federal government down, from the state legislators down. They're mandating things, they're requiring things that dictate money, but they're not giving us any. So somehow, some way, we have to do something about it. And when we talk about being the squeaky wheel, this is where we ask our residents to step up. We can't do it on our own. We have to be a loud entity as a unit to go forward to our legislators, to go forward to our county commissioners and tell them these different things that they're proposing and mandating down our throats can only go so far to a certain extent. And if we don't say anything and we just kind of only leave it at the local level, then we're doing ourselves a disservice. So we need to make sure we keep our legislators accountable, we keep our county commissioners accountable, we keep our federal legislators accountable, because they're the ones sometimes that are doing these things that cause for us to have to make these changes and up these rates and increase these prices. And I hate doing it as much as the next person, but if we're going to keep our city running, if we're going to keep Boynton Beach as a viable entity, then these are the sacrifices we have to make. So with that being said, I am in favor of these proposed changes, very unwillingly, but I am.
Commissioner Casella.
I would just add, this $1 increase in trash. When was the last time we had an increase in trash? Not since I've lived here, I don't think.
It was Jeff. It's been several years, I believe.
2 years. 2 years. 2 years ago. Trash is picked up twice a week. Recyclables. Do I like that? I bet I do. When I have to talk to the police chief or the fire chief and I call 911 and they respond, I like that too. When I drive on our streets or walk our sidewalks, they're in good infrastructure, I like that also. Do I like the way our city looks? Yeah. It all comes with a cost. And let's be honest here. Every year, things increase. The cost of everything is going up. It always will be going up. So I'm in favor of this proposal, of what's been proposed to us here the last couple of days. Am I happy that there's the increases? No, but I understand them. It's part of doing business, the bottom line. So I accept them, and I agree with them, and let's move on.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I kind of, in my time up here, have taken the track that I'm going to regularly seek pro-growth and development positions that I feel improve the city and improve the tax base. I personally, like I said earlier, I harp on fiscal responsibility, and I'm prepared to make difficult cuts, and I feel like that's the path that I prefer to walk personally. So I will not be in favor of the proposed hikes for either item.
There's three. We got the $20 for fire assessment. Is that a yes or a no?
He's saying none of them.
No to those two. The third one was the utility schedule, right?
Okay. All right, well, regarding the fire assessment, the $20, I know that it first started with the building of the fire station. And now it's more of a personnel and pension. The fact of the matter is that we need this. This is a vital part of our city, that if somebody gets hurt, that they have the opportunity that they are going to be able to be taken to the hospital. I'm not happy that we keep on bringing back that it's for a building. It's kind of for the people that are in the fire department. And that moving forward is that, I don't think that we're going to see another hike for the fire assessment anytime soon. And the other matter is that we saw that another 20% pay under $200. So raising the millage rate is not going to affect those people that are paying under $200. So some people are going to see their tax bills jump 20% because they were paying, or 10% because they're paying $200, and now they get the extra $20. As for the garbage fee, people did not get their trash picked up yesterday. And so the main reason why is that we didn't have enough trucks, or we didn't have enough personnel. And so in order to continue the service of two pickups in a week and recycling, we need to charge a little bit more to be more competitive. As for the utility rate, instead of doing a flat 5-year plan to increase rates, having it based upon inflation with a cap makes the most sense, because we all saw what happened when there was a recession. That means the utility bills would have gone down because of the deflation that happened to our economy. I'm glad that we can put the utility rate towards this, and that it is paying, how much, Colin, how much from the utility fee goes to pay for the government, or pay the general fund?
Well, this year it's
7.5%.
almost 6 million, but some of that's direct, but it's 3.5 million, which is 7.5% of gross revenues.
And so, that's the other part that we don't have to increase our own taxes because we are getting that money from outside of our city limits. So I think we have a 3-2 consensus.
For the two formal actions, Jim will read the resolution for the millage rate, which is being proposed at 7.9 mils, which is the same as the current year.
This is Resolution R17064, resolution of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, adopting a proposed municipal millage rate for the general operating budget purposes for fiscal year 17-18, stating a rollback rate, setting forth the date, time, and place of the first public hearing, and providing an effective date. And embedded in that resolution is the stated proposed millage rate of 7.9000, which is a rollback rate of 7.4224, and the announcement that there will be the first public hearing on the budget September 7th, 2017 at 6:30 p.m. in City Hall Commission Chambers.
Did we have to vote on the millage rate? Because I'm not in favor of keeping it at 7.
You have to vote on it.
All right.
So right now, we're on the vote to keep it at 7.9. All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1. Commissioner McRae dissenting.
Thank you.
Okay, the second is a resolution of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, relating to the provision of the fire rescue services, facilities, and programs in the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, describing the method of assessing fire rescue assessed costs against assessed property located within the City of Boynton Beach, directing the preparation of an assessment roll, authorizing a public hearing, and directing the provisions of notice thereof, and providing an effective date. And as I understand the direction of the Commission, the rates are going to stay unchanged for the coming year.
No. It's 3-2.
Was it 3-2?
So we got to do the vote.
Okay.
If I'd like
Voice vote?
All right, so may I have a roll call on that?
To raise it to 120.
To raise it?
Raise to 120.
To 120.
Yes, we're going to have a voice call.
Mayor Grant?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Katz?
No.
Commissioner McCray?
No.
Commissioner Ronalds?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, and the public hearing on that will be
The same time.
same time as the commission meeting just
September
announced
7th.
with respect to the budget and millage.
All right, since you already voted, let me go ahead and throw this out. I'm just saying for individuals who cannot pay the $20, is that still a program that's in place?
Correct. Part of the fire assessment program that the city has passed previously and will continue in this year is a hardship program, which there's an application to fill out. I'll distribute that. It'll be on the website. It'll be at the library, senior center, all the recreation facilities in City Hall. I haven't done the form yet, but we'll announce it at the September hearing when you do the final adoption, and they'll be available then. They can file paperwork with us, and it's based on income level, and we've done it in the past.
Thank you.
Yep.
And while we're on the topic, let me just reemphasize that I am adamantly opposed to taxes like this, and I'm going to call it taxes, that's what it is, in terms of fire assessment, because the fact that they are taxes that are raised and levied against anyone, and they're assessed the same way across all income levels. But to make it very clear and to explain to the public what's happening here, in 2019, we're expected to be hit, most likely because the public most likely will probably support it, with a $2 million levy in terms of what the state is proposing in terms of this whole homestead exemption thing, is that residents can deduct an extra homestead exemption from their home, and how that's going to affect us here in the city is it's going to remove about $2 million in revenue from us. So when we propose things like this now, it's to shore up and prepare for those changes that are going to happen then. So when we say we want to do things like Town Square, we want to keep our garbage picked up on time, we want to keep all our firehouses fully staffed, we want to keep our police officers in place to protect our city and protect our residents. When we say we want to do these things, we have to put our money where our mouth is. And if we're not going to stand up and pay for these things, then we either give it up and go to county, or we say we find some other resources, and that's potentially going after our own personnel and laying them off. We've done that a lot in the past. We've let go a lot of key personnel that were useful to making the city operate to a standard level. We've gotten our way back up. We've climbed up out of that hole, and I would hope to not have to go back there. So when Commissioner Katz mentions, that he would prefer to see cuts, I don't really see where those cuts would happen except for just letting go of personnel, and I'm not for that. I'm not for going back to those recession days when we were running a bare bones city and barely able to make things happen. So again, this is a very tough decision for me, and as you can see, as a public can possibly witness, this went through on a 3-2 vote here. So this was not an easy decision for us as a commission to make, but we just want to be very clear and emphasize the fact that we're hoping that this is something that will prepare the city for the future that's coming up here, when we're going to be diminished highly in revenue that should be coming because of, again, mandates given by the state legislature in a backwards attempt to make it seem as if they're reducing taxes and charges to the regular citizen, when in all actuality they're really just making it harder for the cities to continue conducting their normal daily operations. And we normally see that it's the things that happen at the local and the city level that affect the daily resident way more than the things that happen up in Tallahassee. And we have a huge attack on home rule going on right now, where they're trying to remove our powers as city government to basically make it where they're running our cities up in Tallahassee rather than us. And so all these things, all these constraints that they're putting on us, making it where it's harder for us to bring in revenue, it's intentional. So be mindful of that. As we make these decisions, be mindful that this is an all-out attack and war that the state legislature is basically levying against us.
Since she went on her soap opera, let me go ahead and get on mine. Thank you. The reason I voted against fire assessment was that I said up here before when it was first put in, and we assured the citizens of Boynton that after that it will be sunset. This is why I still remember what we promised them. We did not keep our word, and I cannot say, and I told them that when I said before, I said once again it is going to be taxation. You're going to be taxed for the rest of your life. So far as I'm seeing now, I did not lie. Second of all, when it comes to raising what y'all call the utilities, solid waste, etc., let me explain this to you. If we was getting quality service, I wouldn't mind voting for it, but people in District 2, they're calling me, said our trash is not being picked up. What is the problem? Service has dwindled, and when service go back up, then I vote for it. This is the way I feel. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Casella?
I would just say that over 6,000 properties here in Boynton Beach pay $200 and less in ad valorem taxes, but yet they use the same services that we pay for our properties. So that's how I assess my vote on the $20 fire assessment. I think it's fair. As far as the trash pickups, we know that we're getting 3-4 new trucks in this year. That comes with a cost. I have no problem in District 4. Maybe we're just lucky, or we have a better trucks, better apparatus doing that district as far as our trash being picked up. I have no complaints there. There are times that it's delayed or missed by a day, but that's due to the personnel not coming in or a truck breakdown. So I'm very happy with my vote. I think we're getting what we're paying for.
Vice Mayor, any final comments?
No, there might as well not.
All right, so I'd like to thank the staff. This is never an easy task. $200 million is a lot of money, and so we look forward to making a better Boynton Beach. This isn't over yet, and so we will have further discussion. But we are set with the 7.9, and we will send out information regarding the fire assessment. And Laura, you have any final words?
I do. I just want to say this is the toughest time of year to be an elected official, and it's tough on me too, having to bring some bad news to you sometimes in terms of raising costs and fees. And I will Christina, your comments, Commissioner Romulus, were astute as can be and precisely accurate. We are under full-blown attack from the state legislature on the existence of local government. It is a local priority that is emanating up to the state very aggressively from all municipalities in our leagues to try to continue to sustain ourselves as a city. And we want to be a better city, and we talk all the time, as we do through our strategic planning, to do better things, get better at what we do, provide great services, and that comes with a cost. I will tell you, this was probably one of the toughest budgets I've done with the city in terms of going through and removing and cutting almost $4 million before it even got to the commission to look at. Pens and paper and pencils, all that stuff's to the bone. I can reassure you, and I think you've heard over these last 2 days, your staff, we have phenomenal people that look all the time for ways to get revenues brought into the city, creative ways to take a look at how we can find new money. Chief Joseph this year, just with the Medicare reimbursement and putting the work into it to do it. Many cities aren't because it is so onerous, they're just not going to bother. So you have our assurance that we work very hard to try not to have to ask you to make some of these difficult decisions, but overall, I thank you for your support. I think we have a good budget. We will be able to make some improvements in some areas and stay the course in others. But, incrementally, we can't do it all in 1 year, but incrementally, I think we are absolutely getting to a better place, and I do thank you for your support. I know it's tough.
Okay, and I'll take the opportunity to just thank staff because, again, I know you guys put in a lot of hard work, and I will thank Tony personally, who comes out once a year out of his rabbit hole.
Not for long.
To make things happen here for the city. So thank you again, Tony, for everything that you do, and truly appreciate your work and your service here to the city. I think it goes sometimes unnoticed, but please know that I notice it, and hopefully others do mention it as well.
We do.
In addition, I want to thank the rest of staff and the department heads and all the work that you guys do to make things work and kind of make a cohesive path of least resistance for everything to happen. So thank you all, and I'm going to thank the camera guy who probably never gets any recognition because he's behind the camera. I don't even know his name. What's his name? Robert. Thank you, Robert, for all that you do.
right.
So thank you, everyone.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.